I'm not insane, I am 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 not insane. Natalie, snap out of it. You have a recap to make? Right. Anyways, while she gets herself pulled back together, let me officially welcome you to the Shatter Me series recap. This is a series I actually didn't read growing up, but it is probably one of the top 5 most popular dystopian series out of the 2010s era. And after reading all of the first trilogy twice this year, I can see why. It's not because they're good necessarily, it's because they feel like a CW show in book form. And if you know me, I am sat for a CW show that is so bad it's good any day of the week. I love those shows. I was hooked on the 100 when that was first coming out. I would be there every Wednesday night, was it? Loved that show. So these books, feeling like that, made me fly through them. And I cannot wait to unpack the chaos that lies in those pages with you. Well, actually, I can't wait just a minute because I want to introduce you to the sponsor of today's video, bookshop.org. Y'all already know I absolutely love them. They have made a place where you can conveniently buy books online while still giving back to the local bookstores in your community. I mean, bookshop.org has already generated $47 million for local bookstores. So today I have a challenge for y'all that will help those numbers get even higher and stick it to the man. See, that one certain online bookstore that is trying to destroy all of its competition by selling books at a loss is having their namesake sale right now. So I want as many of y'all as possible to go to bookshop.org and get that book that you have really been wanting to get with free shipping June 23rd through 26th to show that one bald guy that we really don't care what his company has to offer because we will still choose to support our local bookstores over him. And if you need a little inspiration on what to get, let me show you what I got. I mean, obviously what I got is a good stack of books, but you know. The first book I picked up is The Iron Heel. This is another classic dystopian book, and I've just been working my way through those things, so this is another one to add to the collection, and I will be reading this very soon. Then I got the third book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. Yes, I have read all these books. I just need my shelf trophies now, and oh, they are so pretty. I finally got a copy of Watermoon in my hands. I have been wanting to pick up this book so long, mostly because you can fold the dust jacket into a cute little piece of origami, but I'm sure the story is great as well. And then lastly, I got The Shroud and The Death of the Author. These are 2 award-winning books, or possible award-winning books. They're up for an award, which means they have to be good, right? Also, they both sound so interesting. They're both more of a sci-fi vibe, and if you know me, I'm a sci-fi girly for sure. So if you want to get any of these books or any others, make sure to go to bookshop.org June 23rd through 26th to get your books and free shipping. Thank you once again to bookshop.org for sponsoring this video. Go show them some love. We absolutely adore them on this channel. Y'all better go get a book. Or multiple. You should get multiple. That's my advice. So I forgot to say this part when I was filming all of the intro the other day, so let me get you over to recap Natalie now. Cool. Let me start this off by introducing you to our main character, Juliet, who has been locked up in an asylum for 264 days for killing someone by accident. And today, she will be getting a roommate. And to her knowledge, nobody in this asylum ever gets a roommate. So she has no clue what the frick is going on right now. That's kind of par for the course for our girl though, because she is extremely mentally unwell, which if you read the later books in this series is very understandable. But reading a book from her point of view is actually a really interesting experience. She repeats things a lot. She counts like everything she can see, and there's also sections where it's like scratched out in the book where she has, I would call it an intrusive thought, and she's like, no, I don't want to be thinking that, and it's scratched out in the book, and it's so interesting. And they also do it really well in the audiobook with a little scratching sound. I love it. That is one thing I cannot knock about this book. There are some other things I will rant about later in this video, but the writing style is actually fascinating. Okay, back to our main story. Let's get to Juliet's new roommate, and oh my goodness, it's a boy. It's an attractive boy to make it even worse. And this man comes in the room covered in tats and then just takes her bed and her blanket and she's just left sitting in the corner of the room like this, being like, I can't fall asleep because I don't trust this random man they just put in our room. Our room. I'm in there with her, I guess. And does everything she can to not fall asleep because, again, a random man is in her room. And there's no cameras in here of her knowledge or anything like that. Nobody ever really checks on her, so anything could happen right now, and she is rightfully terrified. So we just cut to the next day where she's staring out the window that is in her asylum cell. It's a cell. She's in jail, basically. Like, she's in an asylum, but they're not doing anything to rehabilitate her. She's just in jail, being tortured, kind of. Like, she doesn't talk to anybody, ever. That's torture. Anyways, she's looking out the window, writing in her little notebook about this bird she sees all the time in her dreams, and she's thinking about how sad the world looks because it's normal dystopian YA book stuff. The world isn't doing too hot. There's not a lot of animals around anymore. The climate is just really, really bad. And this was probably all caused by some nuclear war, but she doesn't really know exactly what happened. Anyways, eventually the bed thief and her start having a conversation. And throughout their entire interaction, she is just constantly thinking in and out that this boy reminds her of somebody that she used to know. But anytime that is mentioned, it's scratched through because she can't believe that that is possible. After they've kind of talked for a little while, she eventually just turns back and starts staring out the window again, hoping to see this bird that she dreams of all the time that is white with a crown of gold on the top of its head, that she knows will just fly by one day, apparently. She doesn't know what's going on with this dream, but she keeps dreaming about this bird. But her thoughts about the bird this time are interrupted by this bed thief touching her shoulder, and this is the first time she has had any human, physical contact for 264 days. No one has dared to touch her for that long, because very bad things happen when people come into contact with her skin. Luckily, she's wearing a t-shirt, so he isn't in contact with her skin, but she kind of freaks out a little, and she's like, no, you can't touch me, you can't. But he's like, why won't you answer any of my questions? And she's just stuck in that, no, you can't touch me, because she wants to keep him safe, even though she doesn't trust him. She doesn't want to be responsible for hurting anybody else. The next thing that happens is they have to go through this weird ritual to get to a shower. It's a whole entire chapter. These chapters are really short, but a whole entire chapter is them getting to the shower and taking a quick shower. That is it. And then we go to chapter 4, which opens with her saying, I am not insane, about 55 times. And every time it is crossed out just like this. It is just written so many times. The audiobook sounds insane at this part because it just goes, I am not insane, 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 I am not insane. It's an experience, let me tell y'all. But now we just skip to the next day after she's had a full night full of nightmares, which is her normal, and she wakes up and the boy, who she has now learned is called Adam, is just staring at her, asking, what's wrong? In her head, she's thinking that her parents stopped touching her when she was old enough to crawl. The teachers always made her sit alone because she was a threat to the other students by just being there. She didn't have any friends, and her mother never even hugged her. But like all girls do, we bottle up every single bad emotion we've had ever when somebody asks us, what's wrong? And we say, nothing. Which is always a lie. But Bed Thief over here then apologizes about being a jerk the other day. She accepts this apology and reveals to him that her name is Juliet. And he repeats it in such a way that Juliet has never heard anybody say her name in her 17 years of life. True love at the first time he said her name. Romance. Then, I guess some days go by and stuff like that, but we're not privy to that. So the next time we catch up with them, they're talking about the reestablishment, which is the government that has now taken control of the entire world. And again, this is a pretty typical dystopian type of government where they just have full control of everything. They give you the exact job you're gonna have, whether you like it or not. Only the people at the top are given nice things, and everybody else is just left to live in poverty. After that lore drop, they just keep talking about some other stuff, and the tension is starting to grow between the two of them, and he's like, I just want to know what you're thinking. I want to know your deepest, darkest thoughts, Juliet. And she goes, you shouldn't. You don't even know me. Which, to be fair enough, this would be very overdramatic for most people to say, but Juliet has been through the ringer. Let me attest to that after reading all of this series, basically. But this response leads to Adam, Bed Thief over here, going, ha! I don't know you. Right. Yeah, so this guy obviously knows her, right? We're all thinking that. Cool, got it, good, great. Now, we skip an entire 2 weeks, catch up with them again when they're talking about the reestablishment once again, because, there's not much else to talk about in the world. There's no news or TikTok or anything going on, so they're just left to talk about the sad, sad government. And he's telling her about how the reestablishment is planning to create a new universal language and basically destroy any other type of language that there has ever been, and also are destroying most books. Again, normal dystopian stuff. But this sends her into a panic attack because Juliet loves writing. The only thing thing that has been keeping her kind of sane in here is the fact that she was able to snatch a notebook and a pen from a doctor right before she got put in here. And she has been rationing out that ink to write out little poems and her thoughts and just journal through what has happened to her in this life. And so the idea of books and writing being taken away, the language she loves being taken away, is world-shattering to her, honestly, and like I said, sends her into a panic attack. Now, when this panic attack started, she was already wrapped in a blanket, so Adam comes over and pulls her, like, into his chest and, like, cuddles her, trying to calm her down, but none of their skin is touching. Once she calms down a little bit, she gets out you can't touch me. And she won't explain to him why that is, so he starts getting upset with her about this, wondering why she wants to shut him out when they only have each other right now. But brother, you just met like maybe 3 weeks ago. There was a 2-week cut. We were with you for a couple days, so maybe 3 weeks. She barely knows you. Maybe she doesn't want to get into her deep, dark past. Calm down for 2 seconds, Adam. And this poor girl is trying to explain to him now after she just had a panic attack, mind you. She's like, no, we can still talk and connect that way. You just can't touch me. And this man who she met maximum 3 weeks ago goes, maybe I want to touch you. Buddy, slow down. Take a chill pill. She's locked in the room with you. Don't make it weirder than it has to be. But he proceeds to make it weirder because when she goes, maybe I don't want you to touch me, he gets even more upset and hurt and goes, I disgust you that much? Maybe she just doesn't want your hands on her. Maybe that's it, Adam. Maybe that's all there is to it. And you know, after a response like that, you would think Juliet would be like, ew, maybe I don't like this guy at all. I thought there was like this kind of tension building, but after that response, no. But Juliet has never interacted with anybody, so she's like, oh, but I'm kind of obsessed with him too, and that's like really romantic when it's not. But there is the problem of the fact that she can't touch anybody with her skin because she has a very similar power to I think there's one superhero that isn't that popular that has the same powers. Definitely wasn't in any popular franchises. Can't think of their name. Anyways, by the end of this chapter, she finally accepts that she knows him. But she's pretty sure Bed Thief over here doesn't remember her. And that's because they used to go to school together, and she had all the time in the world to watch everybody else there, but other people didn't pay much attention to her because she was always by herself in a corner. The next day, Adam isn't speaking to her, but that's okay because then somebody bursts through the door. Well, actually 5 somebodies, and they're all pointing guns at them, and she starts to panic because she has barely gotten used to interacting with one human being, and now there's 5 people, again, pointing guns at her currently. So she starts to freak out again and kind of go into that panic attack mentality. And they're now threatening to shoot Adam because she's not moving, and she doesn't want to get Adam hurt, so she stands up and follows the orders that they gave her. They do proceed to get beat up a little bit, and then she passes out at some point during this whole exchange of what's going on and wakes up about 2 days later in a new random cell with no Adam in sight. A random person comes and gets her out of the cell, and then they turn a corner and she sees Adam there, and she's like, oh good, Adam, but then Adam is now pointing a gun at her. But then Adam is now pointing a gun at her too. Yeah, you see, our buddy Bed Thief Adam over here actually works for the reestablishment. Isn't that just great? And he is just here to lead her to Warner. And our girl instantly hates him on sight. She gets one look at him and she goes, I hate that man. I hate that man. And I can't blame her because he kind of does just look like a little prick. Like, come on now. Anyways, Warner is the leader of this area and he is only 19 years old. And all we really know about him is he's very cold, very calculative, and very manipulative. And has been wanting to get Juliet to use Juliet's powers to torture other people to get information out of them. He just needed to first make sure she wasn't actually insane, and that's why they sent Adam to live with her for a few weeks. They then proceed to have the normal enemies to lovers first encounter with each other. She's like, I hate you, you're a monster, and he's like, I know, but it would be such a shame to hurt a pretty face, love. He constantly calls her love from the second they meet, and that is the most bizarre nickname to give anybody when you first meet them. Calling me love? Right off the bat, I'm running away. Shoot me. Please shoot me. So yeah, she doesn't really want to work for this guy, but she doesn't really get a choice in that because that's not the world they live in. So she's kind of just got to accept that she's going to have to find some other way out of torturing people and just got to play along for now. So now she's being taken to a new place where Warner and most of the military people live, where Adam will be her guard 24/7. The only good thing that comes out of this is that she finally gets to go outside after months of not seeing the outdoors, of being able to get a breath of fresh air, so this is a lovely experience for her. But then they gotta get in a tank, which she thinks is a car at first. I don't know how you really confuse the two, but sure. As they're driving to the Sector 45 headquarters over here, she just sees that the world has gotten worse. The temporary structures they put up originally for people to move into while they built up some other stuff are still the only structures around. Everything just kind of looks dead, there's no animals around, and it's just a gray, gloomy sky all the time. But once they get to the political headquarters, she is met by an absolutely stunningly gorgeous interior. Like I said, this is where all the money goes. The people on top get a lot of good stuff and the people on the bottom get below the bare minimum, honestly. Seeing the drastic difference between the two ways people are living right now hits her so hard that it sends her into another panic attack. I mean, she's having to take so much stuff in today. It's very understandable. And like I said, her mental health is down the gutter. Is there something further than the gutter? It's in the core of the earth. She is not doing well. Ever. Adam has to scoop her up off of the ground and carry her to her room, and she's trying to fight out of his grip, being like, please just kill me instead. I don't want to do this. I don't want to work with him. Just kill me. I don't want to hurt people. He just responds to this by saying, Juliet, please, and then opens the door to her room, which is also furnished in luxury and has its own bathroom. She calms down a little, and Adam explains to her that she needs to get dressed, and she's like, I'm already dressed. She is in like rags, basically, like a very raggedy old t-shirt and really raggedy old pants that they gave to her 264 days ago. And the only way they've been washed is when she washes them in the shower when she's showering as well. And he's like, no, actually there's stuff in the armoire that's just a little bit nicer. So, go freshen up in the bathroom. There's a shower in there with nice hot water, and then get changed, and we're gonna go to dinner with Warner, okay? And then he leads her into the bathroom to show her exactly where it is. And he's like, this is the only place that doesn't have cameras. Really subtly. It's not suspicious at all. It's clear to us as the reader that Adam is trying to say something else during this time, but Juliet is so unaware of what's going on, or the fact that Adam just gave her information that she's definitely not supposed to have, that she's like, okay, thanks for showing me where the bathroom is. I know how to shower. And he's like, okay, I'm just gonna go. We'll try this again some other time. Hopefully it works better then. She grabs a quick little shower and then decides to get dressed back into the clothes that she came here in. And then they go to dinner, and she is seated right next to Warner, and she makes it very clear to him that she does not want to be here, by subtly stating that she would rather die than sit next to him and eat his food and hear him call her love. Really subtle. Anyways, normal enemies to lover stuff. This guy just threatens her. The start of all great romances is when the man threatens you, ladies. That's a joke. If a guy threatens you, please never date him. But this is book world, and things are different. Anyways, he threatens her and then just tells her to eat. After dinner, she goes on a little elevator ride with Warner. Now, this is one of those elevators like from the Catching Fire movies that's glass, so everybody in the base can see them in it. And this is basically Warner marking his territory and being like, yeah, she's my... Can't say what I was gonna say. She's my new weapon of mass destruction. And during this elevator ride, he asks to touch her skin because he wants to know what it feels like personally. And when she refuses to do this because she doesn't want to hurt anybody, even the scum of the earth over here, he just has a guard touch her instead. Now, she does try to run away from him, and this poor guard named Jenkins has to chase her down, and she's like, no, please don't touch me, when she's cornered finally. And Warner's like, that is an order, Jenkins. And Jenkins like, okay, cool. And he touches her, and she starts feeling this rush of power go through her, and she can't help but know that it feels so good to feel this powerful. But eventually she snaps out of it and gets Jenkins' arm off of her. But by the time she does that, he is already passed out on the floor, and she doesn't know if he's dead or alive, and she starts freaking out again because she doesn't want to hurt anybody. She doesn't want this ability to hurt people by them touching her. That's a sucky ability. Warner, after this, tries to come over and calm her down. Obviously, that doesn't work, so he ends up just picking her up and taking her back to his room. Mind you, Warner is wearing gloves. I should have mentioned that. He has gloves on, so he is safe to touch her skin. Well, he's not safe to touch her skin, but He's able to touch her skin right now because he has a layer in between them. In his room, he's there and he's like, I just want to help you. Yes, that might mean killing people, but how else do you think I got put in charge when I was 19? Well, let me tell you, that is a whole very interesting story that we will get to if y'all want a part 2 of this video. But it also might be because he's kind of a nepo baby. There also might be that little bit of information that he's leaving out right now. Juliet doesn't care about all that right now because she wants to know what she's actually doing here and what she's going to have to do to other people and why he wants her. And his answer is, one day you'll be introduced to the answer to that question. Are we talking in riddles right now? Because to Juliet we are. Now to me, as somebody who has already read these books, and probably a lot of you have too, because I know most people who click on these videos have already read these books and just want somebody to talk about them with, and so we have this weird internet connection where we're talking about the same book together, but I'm the only one talking, so I really appreciate that you're here. But anyways, Juliet doesn't know what that means. Some of us know what that means. If this is your first time being introduced to this story, you're like, what? Or maybe you're so smart and you're figuring out all the context clues, even though I'm giving you the bare minimum of them. Back on track now. After that, he's like, okay, good night. You're sleeping in my room tonight. And she's like, what? Well, I have a room. Can I sleep there? And he's like, no, you're sleeping here. I'll sleep somewhere else. And she's like, that makes no sense. And he's like, don't worry about it. You sleep in here, love. And then she wakes up the next day and he is just staring at her. And I can't help but imagine that it's just, what are we doing, Warner? It's starting to feel like a Edward and Bella situation over here when Edward would just like constantly watch her sleep, and I'm starting to feel uncomfortable again. I mean, I already was. You keep calling her love. That makes anybody feel uncomfortable when you don't know the man or when you just have to watch this weird interaction between the two of them, but why are we watching her sleep? Can we please stop doing that in books? Unless they're actually in a relationship, then it's kind of cute. I can get on board with that, of course. After just an absolutely horrible morning spent with Warner, she is finally allowed to go back to her room where she finds Adam, who is obviously trying to hide that he's injured, and now it's been made very clear to her that when she disobeys Warner, Adam will be the one who gets punished for it. And since she cares about Adam, she will now basically obey whatever Warner wants her to do, because she wants to keep this man safe. She even puts on a purple dress for that evening that Adam advises her to, but she does find a little something in there that clearly isn't from Warner and is clearly from Adam, and that is her notebook from the asylum. And when she opens it, looks through it, she finds a note that is not in her handwriting, and all it says is, "It's not what you think." I mean, it seems like she's being held hostage here and is gonna be forced to torture people, but sure, it's not what I think, buddy. Luckily, she is smart enough to know this is from Adam, so she rips it out of the book and plans to destroy that note later. And right at the time that Warner said he would be there, he comes bursting into the room and he's like, good, you're ready, let's go, in an oddly flirty manner because it's a dystopian YA book and there has to be one boy who is oddly flirty all the time, but is also kind of creepy about it. Don't worry, I'll introduce you to the other one who is like flirty all the time, but in a fun way. He'll be introduced in a second, just hold your horses. There are only two other guys, and, well, that's a child, so that's definitely not him, but that... We'll talk about Kenji in a second. Kenji is the only thing that gets me through these dang books, let me tell ya. Give him a second, he'll show up, I promise, you're gonna love him. But for now, these two are going up to the roof, and when they get to the edge, she can see that all the guards are perfectly lined up in a row on the ground. And it's clear that Warner is about to give some sort of speech. Well, I mean, the speech is really just to introduce them to Juliet officially and then to also execute someone, because apparently they were acting like a rebel of sorts, and Warner just shoots him point blank in the head from the roof of the building. They are a couple stories up, and this man is in a line with many other men, and Warner just goes pew perfectly and kills him like that. It's quite impressive. But like, he shouldn't be doing that, obviously. This sends Juliet into another panic attack because somebody was just shot in front of her and she's like, you just killed him. And he responds by cupping her face with his gloved hands as going, life is a bleak place. You have to learn how to shoot first. By the time they get back to her room, she is still arguing with him and she's like, my disease and your insanity are not the same. In any way, we are not the same person. Stop trying to relate me to you. Warner over here starts popping off and he's like, no, you don't have a disease, you have a gift. People would kill for the kind of power that you have. And it's just emphasizing to her how much potential she has. But she's like, I don't have potential. I just kill people when they touch me. I don't think that's potential. I would like people to be able to touch me without me killing them. And he's like, yeah, no, but you have so much potential. And then he just leaves the room and that's That's that conversation. Oh, also I forgot to add in, yeah, no, but you have potential, love. And then he leaves the room. Anyways, boring. Bye, Warner. That night, she sleeps on the floor next to Adam. Now, this wasn't a planned thing. She was just on this nice, cush, soft bed, and she's not used to it, so she went to go sleep on the floor, but Adam was already there, so he gets a pillow and a blanket down there for her, and they sleep next to each other, but not, like, cuddling in any way. The next morning is when stuff starts to really get exciting, though, because they have a little rendezvous in the bathroom, and they start to kind of talk, and he's like, no, shh, and then he turns on the water to cover up the noise, and for some reason they both have to get in the shower as well, which I feel like would just dampen the noise because then the water isn't hitting the hard tile and it's just hitting the soft bodies, but you know, they both need wet t-shirts apparently. But they need to be in here because Adam tells Juliet that he can touch her. Now they're talking about it for a bit. They have no clue why he can, but it doesn't hurt him at all. And he learned this because their first night in the cell, he went to try to comfort her or wake her up from a nightmare she was having and touched her skin, and nothing happened then. He knows he touched her skin directly and there was zero response from her or his body. And then they hug in the shower and she starts crying because she hasn't had physical contact with another human like this in years. But it gets even better because Adam is like, I'm gonna get you out of here, but for right now you have to go because you're gonna have breakfast with Warner at 8 o'clock, okay? But before she can scurry off and do that, Warner gets out of the shower, takes off his wet shirt, and when he does, she sees that he has the exact bird she dreams about constantly tattooed on his back. To her, this is a sign that Adam is meant for her. And no one is ever going to convince her otherwise. The next chapter is just her having breakfast with Warner, and this is the same conversation we've heard from them 30 times. She hates him, he sees potential in her, the world hates her, she should just be working against them anyway, blah, 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 blah. Now cut to a week later. She has not been able to talk to Adam at all during this week. It's felt like purposely been kept busy by Warner to a point where they only see each other at night when they're both supposed to be asleep, so they're not talking because that would look suspicious on the cameras. Remember, there's cameras in the room. These two never have privacy. Finally, she gets to a breaking point, and at breakfast that morning with Warner, she's like, hey, I need you to take the cameras out of my room now. If you want me to stop acting like a prisoner, stop treating me like one. And Warner's like, okay, cool, but I'm gonna bring up your traumatic past instead. You killed somebody once. She claims it's just an accident, and that's what it is, honestly, but this is where we finally get the full story. See, Juliet was in a checkout line in a store, and she saw a mom mistreating her kid, and then the kid fell, started crying, and she went over there without thinking and helped him up. But before she knew what was happening, she was sucking the power out of him, didn't know well enough to let go and that it was hurting him, so she ended up killing this little boy, like toddler age boy, by accident. Him bringing this up is very close to triggering a panic attack for her, but she stays strong enough and she's like, I want the cameras out of my room. Warner's like, okay, great, then you just gotta do something for me. When she says name it, he goes, touch me. I want to know what your power feels like. But she doesn't want to touch anybody. It terrifies her. She literally accidentally killed a toddler. That's a very valid reason for never wanting to touch anybody again. So even though this man has been a complete asshole to her, she's like, no, I won't do it. He can tell that she's completely opposed to this idea and is not going to do it just by him asking her to do it in exchange for getting the cameras out of her room. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna make her mad. And he's like, well, you're gonna have to start doing it to people at some point, so why not start now? But she starts fighting back about this in general because she doesn't want to use her power to hurt people. Especially not to hurt people, to torture them, to get information for the reestablishment that is currently destroying their world. He just keeps trying to convince her to do it though, and he's like, people don't care about you. Nobody has ever cared about you. Why do you care about them? These people have never helped you. All they have done is thrown you into asylums and put you in the corner of the classroom. But that's still not making her mad enough to make her want to touch him, so he decides to bring up Adam and the fact that Adam volunteered for this mission because he knows who Juliet is, and Adam told Warner that she was a monster. So he wanted to be personally responsible for her to make sure she wouldn't hurt anybody else. This is what works and gets her riled up to the point where she goes, take your shirt off, because she is planning to touch him. She wants this man to feel pain. Right before she's about to touch him, she's like, okay, you'll take the cameras and the microphones, everything out of my room. You will stop watching me 24/7. And his response is, I am an exceptional liar. And this snaps her back to reality, and she's like, I'm making deals with the devil right now. This is not a guarantee. If I touch him, he may not remove anything from my room. She pulls her hand back then, tells him to go to hell, and then goes running out the door, only to run straight into Adam, who was standing right outside this entire time. Warner is right behind her, looks at Adam, and just tells him to take all the cameras and microphones out of her room. Then he looks at Juliet, and tells her that he expects her to hold up her end of their agreement. So these two go back to the room. He turns off all the cameras, microphones, everything like that, and they finally both admit that they've known who each other is the entire time. Who each other is, who they each are the entire time. Grammar's not working. This all leads to them hugging and touching and almost kissing, but then beep, beep, beep. It's somebody not coming into the room, and it's somebody coming over the intercom being like, excuse me, all the cameras and microphones were turned off in here. Why is that? And he's like, Warner told me to, and the guy's like, sure, I'll check on that, but if that's not the case, you're in big trouble. And Adam's like, okay, Warner told me to, we're good. So once that little conversation is done, these two go back to plotting their escape. Oh, but while they're chit-chatting about this, somebody knocks on their door, and this is when we finally meet Kenji, the only good part of these books. Not the only good part, but like the best part of these books by far. If you want to know Kenji's personality by the short little scene we're gonna get of him, because we don't get a lot of him right now. He just kind of comes in, and he actually seems like a asshole in this scene, but like, bear with me. He's just talking to Adam, and he's like, I just want to see the girl that can kill people, man. But Adam just tells him to leave, and that's honestly all we get of Kenji right now. But if you just gotta know, you just gotta look forward to this, because Kenji is the Finnick of these books, and I mean personality-wise, he's just a complete flirt, but also a very caring character that just, he's kind of the heart and soul of the story almost. He is the thing that keeps all these characters going, and you will see that in the later books. I just have to gush about him right now because I find him a very well-written character. He has some unlikable traits, yes, and he's complex, and the way they dive into the fact that he's always hiding how hurt he is with his humor, it's so brilliantly done, and I feel like I'm spoiling stuff by saying all this, but just know I can't help but gush about him. He's so great. Anyways, back to these two planning. Apparently in 3 weeks' time, a bunch of the soldiers from here are gonna go to somewhere else that needs them for some sort of battle they're having. And that's when these two are going to sneak out, when the base is very lightly armed and there's not a lot of people to catch them. But it's boring to live another 2 weeks out here with just Juliet and Warner having the same argument over and over again, so we cut to another 2 weeks later. And on this morning that we're catching back up with her, she's having breakfast with Warner again. He's being way too touchy in all the areas that she's actually covered in, like he normally is, because this man does not know how to keep his damn hands to himself or stop calling her love. And then, after breakfast, he gives her the skimpiest little outfit, the book's words, not mine, or the skimpiest little tank top. Like, it's a tiny little tank top and tiny little shorts, and he goes, put this on, and she's like, what? But he doesn't really explain anything besides the fact that they're gonna take some sort of aptitude test today, but she has no clue what that means. So she puts on this outfit, then they go underground somewhere. She's put into this room once the door closes. It's clear that there's like spikes coming up from the ground in different points, and then she looks over at another door that is just open, and a toddler walks in, right where the spikes had been coming up before. Mind you, this toddler only has a diaper on, and she only has on the tiniest little bit of clothes, so she has no way to get this toddler away from these spikes that will definitely kill him without touching him herself. So she goes over, she picks this kid up, and the kid instantly feels her pain and starts to react and is squirming away from her and is crying out, and she feels awful about this, but she also knows she needs to save this kid. Eventually she figures out a way to manage to hold the kid by his diaper and like kind of prop him up on her leg, I'm guessing, in a way where he's not actually touching her skin, but he is still screaming, crying out in pain. She doesn't really know what's going on anymore, but she puts the toddler down in a safe section of the room. Warner has been saying a few things in the room during this time, and she is so beyond mad that she catapults into a brick wall, smashes through it, and then has Warner in a chokehold against the wall. His guards are pointing guns at her, and he's like, don't you dare shoot her. She's going on about how she should kill him right now, though. Warner's like, hey, Juliet, you just broke through a concrete wall. Mind you, Juliet is like 5 foot nothing and probably weighs 100 pounds soaking wet, okay? She is teeny tiny. Unrealistic standards of teeny tiny girls in book form. It's not my description, it's just, that's what all the girlies are in these books, okay? Being over 100 pounds is cool, great, love it, personally recommend. Anyways, him mentioning that she just broke through a concrete wall kind of snaps her out of the rage she was in, and she's like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. But then she just drops Warner to the ground and leaves that room, leaving Warner completely terrified, wondering what she is capable of. Terrified's not the right word. leaving Warner really excited to figure out what she's capable of. That's the right word. But she's not as excited though, because later Adam just finds her in her shower with the water running and just hitting her as she's fully clothed and sobbing. And he goes in there and he's comforting her. And after this traumatic day she has, this boy goes, I'm in love with you. Brother, not the time. She's been through a lot already. I don't think she has the mental capacity to process that. And you know what? It's also definitely not the time for kissing, but guess what? They start doing kissing. Because she's not disturbed by the fact that this boy that she barely knows says, I'm in love with you. No, she's like, cool, great, I'm gonna make out with you, because she doesn't know how human relationships work, and this guy is kind of taking advantage of her. Okay, Adam is. He knows that she hasn't had normal interactions, and he doesn't have the patience to like wait this out and let her figure out who she is. He's like, no, I'm in love with you. This is called love bombing, Adam. But then he's gotta go, so he leaves, and then she takes her sweet time getting ready, gets dressed, and then this is when she finally decides to look in a mirror, because she hasn't looked in a mirror the entire time she's been here. Adam conveniently pops back in during this time, and he's like, ah, you're gorgeous. And then they start kissing again. But then another alarm goes off. And you know, I feel like this is God telling them that they're not meant to be together, because every time they've almost kissed so far, or have been kissing, an alarm goes off and he's gotta go. But anyways, back to what this alarm is actually about. This turns out to be a Code 7, which means all soldiers must report to the quad immediately. They're deciding what the heck to do right now. Maybe this is the time they escape. They don't really know, but then Warner pops in and he's like, Adam, what are you doing here? And Adam's like, I didn't know what you wanted me to do with her. I didn't know if you would want me to leave her alone or not, sir. Yes, sir. And this somehow leads to this whole weird scene where she's wearing a dress, Warner comes over and he's like, the slit isn't high enough, and rips open the slit of her dress to go way higher on her leg, like almost to her hip bone, honestly, is what the description sounds like. And this is where he feels the journal in the pocket of her dress, because they are not heathens here, they do put pockets in her dress. Which, I mean, we should say thank you, Warner, for that one good thing that you did. Thank you so much. But he grabs that notebook out and he's like, I never gave you a notebook. Where'd you get it? Now, mind you, Adam had left because Warner told him to, so this is where Adam comes back into the room, pointing a gun at Warner. And this leads to this whole insane escape scene that happens after this. Luckily, they had packed a bunch of stuff to escape, but during this time that they're trying to figure out how they're going to escape, Warner's like, haha, this was just a drill. Not everybody's in the quadrant, or they are, but they'll be back really soon, so you don't actually have time to escape. And then they're like, okay, well, we gotta get the rope ready to go out the window. And during this time that this is happening, these two confess that they're in love with each other. And Warner is really hurt by this because he's not so secretly in love with Juliet as well. And he's like, how could you choose him? And I mean, like, fair enough. Adam does suck, but you suck more right now. They do end up having to shoot Warner to get out of there, but it's only like in his arm or leg. It's in his leg this time. Spoilers, he's gonna get shot again, but it's in his leg this time. But then Adam goes down the rope first so he can catch Juliet if she falls, and then as she's going out there, Warner says something to her. She stops for just a second, or just hesitates for just a second, and she feels Warner's hand like brush her ankle. Mind you, he's not wearing gloves right now. His skin touches her skin and she feels nothing and he doesn't react at all. But she doesn't have time to dwell on this because she's going out the window and is now convincing herself that he never actually touched her. That couldn't have happened. Warner can't also be immune to her touch. That would be crazy. But right now, we don't have time to deal with that because these two are out of the building and they are running for their lives through this compound, this whole community that's set up here, and they run into this random field and where Adam just has a tank parked conveniently. And once again, Juliet sees the tank and goes, oh cool, a car, oh wait, a tank, and like, girl, why are we doing this twice? We cannot be confusing a tank for a car twice. That is just way too much for me to accept, okay, man? We gotta start knowing what a tank is and what a car is, please. Oh, also the field that they're in where this tank is parked is where a nuclear explosion happened or something, okay? So they got like gamma rays or something going on around them, which isn't ever great. But it is great because it kills the trackers that are in both of their bodies, or at least Adam's. And he knows he's okay here because he's been out here multiple times before and there's something different with his genetics that the nuclear stuff doesn't affect him. And Juliet's like, hey, what about me? And he's like, oh, don't worry. We also had to do a bunch of blood work for you and I know this doesn't affect you either, so you're fine. But they finally get into the tank that she thought was a car and he goes, let's go home. And she's like, home? What do you mean home? During this tank ride, they have this whole cute conversation about how it's them against the world, and then they pull into this parking garage and he goes, oh, we're here, by the way. But they don't get out of the tank right away because they want to get a little bit spicy, like honestly spicy, but they just get into making out, and then all of a sudden, a little boy comes running up to the tank, and this would be James, Adam's little brother, who already knows exactly who Juliet is. Because Adam was somehow able to communicate with James through some sort of special telephone on the military base that isn't being listened to constantly, which I just don't think exists. I think they're lying to us. I feel like they know exactly where James is, and by they I mean the military. But sure, we've got a secret special phone that he's able to talk to this kid on that no one knows exists. They also don't know that he has a place to live outside of base at all. Like, he has this whole secret life from the military. I don't think that's happening, buddy. But anyways, in this world, sure, it happens. And so they're all safe at Adam's house. Who knows why, but they are. They all head into this one-bedroom apartment type of situation. James eventually settles down and falls asleep for the night, so these two have some time to chit-chat. Mind you, James is asleep on Adam's lap, so he is still in the room, okay? They have a buffer right now, thank goodness. Adam starts getting into his backstory on why he's been looking for Juliet, and that's because he couldn't stop thinking about her and has been looking for her ever since she disappeared. Because even though they had never talked in school, he saw how sweet of a girl she was and didn't want anything bad to happen to her. And you know what? If this was the only obsessive tendency Adam was showing, it would be really, really cute. But throughout the entire time of this book so far, it is clear he is way too obsessed with this girl. Like, way too obsessed. They need to take a chill pill. They need to put it on the backseat. They're making out when there's a lot of trauma to unpack. Let's unpack the trauma first, make out later, please. But yeah, no, this boy has a lot of like obsession, and you know, that just grows into possessiveness and other bad traits. Obsession is never a good thing because it really means you can't think about anything else but that person, and you're not thinking clearly when it comes to that person necessarily. It's like, no, they're mine. If you're obsessed with something, you're thinking of it as yours almost, honestly. Off of that topic for now, a little later, Adam carries James to his bedroom and puts him to bed. Then when he comes back out, they start talking about his bird tattoo, and you think it's gonna be this whole big revelation, but she's just like, yeah, I dream about those birds a lot. I think it's really weird that you have them, and it's like you're meant to be mine, but I stopped dreaming about them once we met, so it's like I found my bird finally, and that's the conversation. He's not like, whoa, that's so crazy. He's like, cool, yeah, no, that's understandable, honestly, which it isn't. What is with this bird? And you know what? Here's the thing is, we're never gonna learn anything else about this bird. This bird tattoo means absolutely jack shit in this series, and it drives me insane. It is the biggest coincidence known to man that he has this bird tattooed on him, and there's just no correlation there at all. We don't bring it back up for some crazy plot twist later in the books. No, he just has this bird tattoo that she dreamed about all the time. I find that insane. But back to the story. These two are now alone in the living room. They've got a bunch of blankets and pillows on the floor to make as comfy of a sleeping area as they can, but these two don't want to sleep. Oh, and it gets really bad really fast. They're cuddled up, and our girl, oh, Juliet, our girl, they're cuddled up, and she goes, touch me. I'm sorry? In a YA book? And no, she doesn't mean the innocent touch me, she means touch me. And that is, too much for my little brain to handle. When I'm going in to read a YA book, Shatter Me is incredibly guilty of, being way too spicy for a YA book many, many times. We'll get into that more in the second book. There's a lot more of that in the second and third book and all the following books. But this book, even you see the hints of it, it's like, hey, whoa, children, stop. Luckily for all of us in this moment, James wakes up from a nightmare and he's like, Adam, I need you. Can I sleep out here? And Adam's like, okay, so these two don't get to do any freaky stuff in the living room. But anyways, the next day, James wakes up, he goes off to school. These two are just kind of chilling around the house, talking for a little bit, and then they hear a knock on the door. And they get their guns because who is knocking on their door right now? Adam decides to go and answer the door because if it was Warner, he wouldn't be knocking on the door. The door would already be exploding off of its hinges right now. There would be no more door. They would just be already in a tank taken back to base if it was Warner. So he decides to go and check the door. And when he gets there, he finds Kenji. And no, they don't really trust this dude. Yes, Adam is kind of friends with him at the military headquarters, but Adam has no clue if he's just been sent here to find them from Warner. He doesn't know what's going on, but it is clear that Kenji is definitely beat up, and he also does have a bullet in his leg. So, clearly, it doesn't look like he left of his own free will. He didn't leave on orders. It looks like he left of his own free will and had to escape, basically. Kenji uses all of his charm to convince his way inside. He's like, dude, I got a bullet in my leg. I did not just get sent here and get a bullet put in my leg for fun, okay? I came here to find you. I escaped from the same compound y'all did. Please let me inside and get the bullet out of my leg. And when he finally gets inside, he sees Juliet. He turns to Adam over here and he's like, you're insane. And then Kenji over here starts like, high-key hitting on her, but like in a flirty, funny way and not in too aggressive of a way, honestly. And it's also like, you kind of crazy though, because you can kill people if they touch you, which, I mean, I don't know if we can make that work, man. Just know that Kenji has no filter at all, and he will make most situations awkward, but like in a funny way and not like, oh, I need to be out of this situation way, you know? Adam gets Kenji to the bathroom, gets him all patched up, and then Kenji, during this whole ordeal, passes out at some point, and once he wakes back up, he's like, guys, I got a safe place I can take you, okay? Because they're not going to be able to stay here now that Kenji is here. They don't know if he led all of Warner's people right back to them by accident or not. And since they really have no other option, as soon as James gets back from the school he's at today, they're gonna go follow Kenji to this mysterious safe place that he's talking about with the guy that he knows. Even though Adam absolutely despises this man right now because he will not stop flirting with Juliet. He is such a flirt. But in fairness, Kenji doesn't realize that these two are actually in a relationship because they're not saying anything about how. They're not saying anything about it. They're not correcting him, being like, hey, we're exclusive. They're just kind of both sitting there. And she's not having really necessarily a bad reaction towards it. It's just Adam who's like, you freaking jerk, shut up. Eventually, this all builds up so much that Adam elbows this poor man who is already really beat up in the nose and makes him start bleeding. And yeah, sure, this is partly played for a funny gag, but I really do think this is largely played to show the possessiveness Adam has over Juliet. I know we were just talking about that a second ago, but there's a reason we were talking about it a second ago, because it is so obvious, especially in this scene, that he is way too possessive over him. It's clear to everyone else that Kenji is just a flirty type of guy. He's not actually trying to steal Juliet, and he would back off instantly if one of them would speak up and say they were actually in an exclusive relationship, but they're not doing that. So Van's having a bad day. He decides it's gonna be a little funny to be a little flirt when he knows that none of that is actually serious. But Adam over here doesn't know how to take a joke. Now, mind you, if somebody is flirting with you and you tell them to stop, then they need to stop. It's not funny after that point. But Juliet never really says anything. She's just like, haha, and doesn't seem to really care that much. I feel like she understands Kenji more from the bat than Adam does, even though Adam has known Kenji longer, okay? I feel like I'm really trying to defend Kenji now because I promise he's not just a creepy guy. He's just a funny guy who is a flirt and would back off if one of them would just speak up for 1 second. And all this actually leads up into our third red flag for Adam, because Kenji is talking to Juliet, not Juliet and Adam at this point. He's asking her about her abilities, and Adam keeps speaking up for her and answering every single damn question this man asks to Juliet. At one point, even Kenji goes, hey man, maybe you should back the hell off and let her talk for herself. He's been around them for maybe 2 hours at this point, maybe that long, I don't really know. And he's already seeing that this man won't let this girl speak for herself. He wanted somebody to take care of. And right now, Juliet needs that. But what is going to happen to their relationship when she doesn't need that anymore? I feel like I'm starting a relationship class. I'm like, ladies, pay attention. This room is just filled with awkward tension at this moment. Finally, James gets home to relieve us of that. So they start ironing out the final details of their plan, but they don't really have time to actually do that because they start hearing boots coming towards them and lots of boots. Boots, I got ego. Anyways, they know it's time to go. And Kenji's like, you got another exit out of here. Luckily, there's a window in James's bedroom, so they head out that way. After they leave out the window, they find a safe space for Kenji and James to hide while these two go and find a car so they can drive to where they need to go to the safe space that Kenji knows of. Got it, great. Okay, good. These two go running off, trying to find a car, fighting off other people. Adam is shooting them to just injure, not kill. He says that to Juliet. And once they finally find some cars, Warner finds them. And says, about time. I don't know why he talks like that. I won't do that for this whole recap, I promise. And, then Adam gets shot and he gets dragged away, and then Warner drags Juliet away into this random abandoned building. And she's like, what just happened to Adam? Is he alive? And Warner's like, no, he's dead. My guy? What? Of course, Juliet is crying now because she thinks Adam might be dead, and Warner's just going on about how she's afraid of what she's capable of, and she's just capable of so much more than she thinks. And then he goes, I love you. Now, Warner, how did we get there, Warner? Warner, how did we get there? Because all this girl has been calling him is a monster, vile, disgusting creature of a human being. And somehow Warner goes, I love you? Brother, what? Oh, and I haven't even brought up the most important bit here. Juliet has still told no one that she thinks Warner might have touched her, but she's still denying the fact that Warner touched her to herself. But these two are very close at this moment, and Warner makes it very clear that he knows he touched Juliet and he felt nothing. He is safe to touch her. By him being this close, though, Juliet notices the gun in his jacket pocket, so she decides to switch it up and start playing along. I feel like it's important to note here because they try to justify what's about to happen later in this series, and I just feel like it's really not justifiable, and to actually like Warner, you have to ignore this moment, truly. Because it is obvious that she is horribly distressed throughout this whole entire situation. And obviously, she's been coerced into kissing him. And she's not even the one that starts the kiss. Warner still starts the kiss. He leans in and he kisses her. It's a very simple change to make him seem not as bad of a person later in the books and make this way more justifiable if you have Juliet lean in and kiss him to play along. So at least he's getting sent the signal that she at least started the kiss, but no, you have him starting the kiss, which just makes him look even worse than he already is. Juliet is absolutely disgusted during this entire kiss, but she's playing along and his hands are roaming all over her body freely, and she's just trying to kiss him long enough to get to the point where she can grab the gun from his jacket pocket. Luckily, eventually she does, stopping the kiss, and he has this look of fear on his face, and then she shoots him in the chest and bolts out of there before she can check if he's actually dead. Which I don't know why we couldn't spare a second to make sure he was actually dead, but we couldn't. Luckily for Adam over here, Juliet is not convinced that Adam is dead, so she goes off looking for him, and eventually she comes to this giant container building thing, and there's only one way in, and that is through a steel door. Now, this door is locked for obvious reasons because they have a prisoner in there, but Juliet tries to open it, and eventually she just gets so mad that she punches the door, and she knows this is a stupid decision, but she forgets that she punched through a concrete wall earlier and punches straight through the steel door and, rips it open. Once she gets in there, she figures out that they actually have Adam in a slaughterhouse, and when she finds him, he is tied up to one of the racks that would basically go along conveyor belt, but she's able to cut him down, get him out of there, and it is obvious that he is very badly injured right now. He has a bullet in his leg at least, he's been beat up, he's not looking too good, but they still gotta go and they gotta find a car. Luckily, she's able to drag him out of there with whatever is left of her super strength that she doesn't know how to control at this point, and they eventually find a car that has keys in it, conveniently, but there is one small problem. She doesn't know how to drive. But thank the Lord, this is actually a manual car, so she is able to do her best and get it back to where Kenji and James are, and when they get there, they find that James is passed out, and that is because Kenji gave him some sleeping pills, basically. Nothing too harmful, probably just a more powerful form of ZQL or something like that, and these two are so mad at Kenji for doing this to, the 10-year-old boy over here, and, I don't get why they're mad. This is a really traumatic situation that if you have the option to not have a kid remember this, yeah, maybe just give them the sleeping pills that aren't gonna hurt them. They should be thanking Kenji at this point, but no, they're like, Kenji, how dare you, I'm gonna kill you over this, and Kenji's like, whatever, Juliet, get out of the driver's seat, I'm driving because I know where we're going, and they go. By the way, seating position, not Warner. Adam's in the back. He's not doing too good, so he's laying down in the back. Juliet goes back there as well because they don't want James to see Adam in this situation. But you know what? He never does because he's asleep, but they put him in the passenger seat anyway, so he doesn't see it. They don't want him to see it like this, but they're upset that Kenji stopped him from seeing it like that. I get it. This is not the biggest plot hole or biggest deal in this book, but it really, really annoys me, okay? I'm gonna calm down and focus back up though now. Once everybody is situated, Kenji starts driving, and they're driving around, and then they get to another hidden parking garage and get down in there to safety. People start swarming out from doors here. They're talking about how they're gonna take Adam to the medical wing. All of a sudden, this feels very familiar to what happened when they got her out of the asylum that one day. She doesn't know these people, and she doesn't trust them to take care of Adam, and she's telling Kenji, I need to go with him, let me go with him, and Kenji is like, no, I can't let you do that, and she's like, why can't I go with him? And there's no reason that she shouldn't be able to go with him. This is a new scary place, this will keep her calm, just let her go with the man right now, oh my word, but they don't let that happen. So eventually, they have to give her a sedative to knock her out, which I feel like is really dramatic, Kenji, okay? I was okay with you getting the sedative to the little boy so he wouldn't be traumatized, but just let the girl go to the medical wing. You just brought a heavily traumatized girl to a brand new place with a bunch of new people, and the only time she's interacted with new people recently, it's been a really bad experience, so why can't she just go with Adam, the one person she trusts right now? When she wakes back up, she's just naked under a sheet and has been scrubbed clean of all the dirt on her body, with a random man asking her how she's feeling. I don't know, random man, not good because you're here. And this random man that she has nicknamed Blondie because he's blonde still won't tell her where Adam is, even though that's the one thing that would obviously help her calm down. But eventually she gives in and starts kind of answering this guy's questions. And then to add to her trauma, she's told that Kenji touched her because he's the one who gave her the sedative to pass out, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh my gosh, is he dead? And Blondie over here is like, no, he's fine. Don't worry about it. And she's like, he's fine? And finally, Blondie tells her that Adam is recovering in the medical wing and everything is okay. Again, why we can't tell this mentally unstable girl that the one person she trusts in this world is okay is beyond me. And now this is when Kenji walks back in the room, apologizing for Winston over here. We get that that's this guy's name. I should have printed out his photo for this recap. I forgot he was in this book at all, honestly. Sorry about that, Winston. I'll get your photo up here soon, buddy. Don't you worry about it. Anyways, Kenji comes back in, and he looks perfectly fine. Normally, if somebody touches Julia, it takes them a long time to get back to normal health. So she's wondering how the heck he's okay right now. She starts apologizing to him still, though, and he's like, yeah, you're okay, it's fine. I just don't understand how somebody who looks so good can feel so bad. Oh. Yeah, he has some really cringy lines, but again, I like to believe that he knows they're cringy as well and is just playing into it, okay? He's a drama queen. There's more like jokey, flirty stuff going on between the two of them, and he's really just here to say that he needs to take her to Castle, who is the leader of this resistance. Let's call it that. Kenji has to run out, go and get her some of his clothes because she has no clothes to wear currently, and we don't want her walking naked around the base. So he goes, gets her clothes, and for some reason they still can't just stop by and see Adam and James over here. Again, the two people she knows know she has to go see Castle first, so Kenji just takes her to Castle. And you know what happens when she gets to Castle? Castle's like, oh yeah, we can go see Adam and James. Couldn't tell anybody else that they were allowed to go take her there, no. But anyways, these two start walking and talking. He is now giving her the tour of what we now know is Omega Point, the operations for the resistance group. It's this whole thing that's underground. It's very much like District 13. And as he's giving the tour, he's also explaining to her things aren't as bad as the reestablishment wants them to think. There's actually still quite a bit of animals in the world. They're just hiding them from the general population. And yes, there has been a lot of damage done to the client, but it is still reversible. It is not in the state that the reestablishment wants people to think it's in. And there's plenty of food to go around. People don't have to be starving right now. The reestablishment is just hoarding it for the people at the very top, which she has seen firsthand when she was living at the military headquarters because they were feast every single day. She has a hard time believing all of this though because she just met this guy, remember? So she's asking him for proof, not believing that he's actually gonna have any, but he's like, yeah, of course I have proof. I can show you that, sure. Finally, they get to the medical wing and she sees Adam and he looks way too healthy from the last time she saw him. He should not be looking this good right now. It's only been like a day and he looks like nothing happened to him when he was battered and bruised like 24 hours ago. And this is because he wasn't treated in the normal medical way that we know of. No, he looks this good because at Omega Point, there are many other people like her with many different abilities. And two of these people happen to be twin girls who have the healing ability. So they're able to just heal people and not have to deal with all the medicine and stuff like that. So that's why he looks basically perfectly fine. Castle is the one explaining all this to her and also explaining that when he figured out that he had this special ability, he knew there had to be others like him, so he started looking out for them and finding them as well, because he knew if they all worked together, they could be extraordinary. When she asked him what his gift is, he starts moving stuff with his mind. He has the power of telekinesis, I think is what it's called. This is when a guy named Brendan pops up, and he has the power of electricity. So when he goes out to shake her hand, he's actually the one to pull back his hand and go, oh, sorry, sometimes when I touch people, I shock them, so I shouldn't be offering to shake your hand. And she's like, don't worry, sometimes when I touch people, I kill them, and they bond over that instantly. This is the first time that somebody has been afraid to touch her, not because of her, but because of their own power as well. And she's starting to realize maybe she does kind of fit in here. After this little interaction with Brendan, though, Castle finally allows her to go in and see Adam. And Juliet goes straight over to him, touching him like normal, and Castle's like, oh, no. And she's like, what? Oh, no one told you that I can just touch Adam? Yeah, he's fine. And Castle's like, you can? Oh, okay. And starts theorizing that Adam probably also has some sort of an ability then. Castle is a very busy man, though, so after he explains all of that, he's like, I gotta go. Your two roommates are gonna be the girls, Sarah and Sonia. They're just nicknamed the girls by everybody, and it was easier to put that on there than two names, okay? But this is Sarah and Sonia, by the way. Got it, great. Anyways, they're gonna be her roommates, and then Adam, James, and Kenji are all gonna be roommates together. Warner is not here. Adam was asleep when she first came in, but now he wakes up and they start talking about what this place is. Apparently the military kind of knows about it, but they don't know exactly where it is. And to most citizens, it just seems like a completely fake thing that doesn't actually exist, but everybody else that is higher up knows it's real. It's just not a big enough concern for them to actually try to do something about it yet. But Adam knows that if Warner is still alive, if Juliet didn't actually kill him, which obviously she didn't because she didn't go back and check, if there's no proof that the body is actually dead, they're not dead. But anyways, they know that Warner will be heavily looking for a mega point now because Juliet is here and he is obsessed with Juliet. And she's talking to him and she's like, yeah, I really don't think Warner is dead. And then this is where Kenji comes in and he's like, no, he's not dead. We just saw him on the cameras. He's out with the people looking for this area right now, which is really odd. Kenji didn't just come here to tell them that, no, he actually came here to collect Adam because Adam is healed enough to go back to the room he will be living in with Kenji and James at this point. But Adam makes up a little lie that he doesn't actually have any clothes on, so Kenji has to go out and get clothes once again, but he does actually have clothes on. He just wanted to have a little privacy with Juliet. And then, you know, they start making out like they normally do when they're alone. Kenji gets back and he's like, yo, dude, there's literally glass walls out there. Could you keep it together for 2 seconds? So they break it up and then they both go to their respective rooms for the night. And then the next day she goes to meet back up with Winston, who is the guy she woke up in the random room with on her first day here, to be fitted into her very own super suit. Winston is basically Edna mode, I guess. And this suit is a purple latex suit that covers her from ankle to like high neckline up here. So none of her skin is really revealed besides her hand, feet, and head. It's temperature controlled, so even though it's skin tight and all over her, but pretty thin material, she's never gonna be too cold or too warm in there. And to finish it off, she is given black latex gloves and black boots as well to cover up her feet and hands. And she finally starts to feel kind of safe because she realizes she's not by herself anymore. She has people who care about her. She has a whole team around her now. She has other people with abilities in her life that are ready to help her figure out how to control her own ability. And we end this first book with her truly believing that she is ready to face whatever lies ahead of them. But that doesn't last for long, so let's get into the second book, shall we? Alright, quickly welcome our new characters to the board. We'll talk about them when we get to them, but now let's cut to 3 weeks later, and Juliet is not adjusting well. Yeah, it seemed like everything was going great when she first got here, but it's actually not going well at all. She's not talking to anybody else besides Adam, basically, at this point, and Kenji is too busy because he's very important at Omega Point to babysit her all the time and actually help her get adjusted as of now. So she's kind of just sitting in a training room all by herself trying to figure out her powers with no help from anybody because everybody is kind of scared to train the girl who can kill them by just touching them. So, I mean, fair enough, but also judgy from a bunch of people with weird powers as well, right? But eventually Castle has had enough of her moping around and he's like, all right, whatever. I'm gonna figure out Kenji's schedule and I'm gonna have him start training you effective tomorrow. And you are going to start hanging out with other people and socializing with them because they're scared of you because they don't know you and you're acting kind of scary by not talking to anybody. And she's like, Okay. Cool. And the reason it's so important for her to be training to try to figure out what her powers fully are and how to harness them and use them correctly, especially that super strength, is because they're pretty sure they're gonna have to deal with like a war between them and the reestablishment here pretty soon. But who's got time to worry about that when she has a hot boyfriend that she needs to make out with in her room that he's not allowed to be in? But they're making out, they're having a fun time like usual, like these two kids do over here. What am I doing? Anyways, there's a couple times while they're kissing and stuff that he pulls back and it almost looks like he's in pain and she's like, you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine, brushes it off. And she doesn't really think anything of it. I don't know why, but she doesn't. And after they're finished making out, this is when Adam has a panic attack for himself, and he starts kind of mumbling, and it's like, I have to tell you, but I can't tell you, and blah, 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 blah. And she's just left wondering what the heck he found out in his testing with Castle, because right now Castle is testing Adam to figure out exactly what his ability is, but he hasn't told her anything about that testing. She's asking for more explanations on what he means by I have to tell you and I can't tell you, but he just runs out of the room instead, leaving her completely confused. Now, the next morning, she's supposed to meet up with Kenji as planned with Castle, but she decides to stick to her normal antisocial stuff and is just planning to go sit down at a table with Adam because, again, people figured out that she killed a little kid by accident and no one is wanting to talk to her, but also she is isolating herself. So, yes, the people at Omega Point are not being as welcoming as they should, especially to somebody so traumatized, but also she has done nothing to try to seem approachable to them. And it's also odd because the first interaction she had with Brendan over here was so friendly, and it seemed like they were really gonna get along, but she hasn't even talked to him since that first introduction. And of course, Adam, sad boy over here, bed thief, is doing nothing to help her with that. He has more socialization skills than she does, but he refuses to help her actually socialize because, selfishly, I think he wants her all to himself all the time, and he doesn't want to have to worry about sharing her. But Kenji is not letting any of this happen. While she's in line to get through, he throws a wadded up ball of socks at her, and he's like, hey, you and me, we're hanging out today, we're training, we're gonna be best buds. And also now deems her the name of Princess, which he will proceed to call her for the rest of the series, and it's actually quite fun. I do like the nickname Princess between them, it's very funny. Normally I hate the nickname Princess, but for these two it really works. Juliet is still acting pretty closed off even towards him after this fun introduction, so he decides the best way to break open her social shell is to dramatically declare that he's in love with her in front of everybody, and can't she see, when it's obviously a joke. She's getting really embarrassed by this, but then she realizes everybody else around Omega Point is kind of laughing at Kenji. They're not laughing at her, they're used to his antics. He is the life of the party all the time. He is the one keeping everybody's spirits up constantly. If she is seen being friends with Kenji, everybody is going to trust her because they adore Kenji. After this whole dramatic display and kind of this hey, I'm her friend, be nice to her moment from Kenji, they go find a table, sit down at, and eventually Adam comes over and he does apologize for last night for his little freak out and is like, everything's fine, and doesn't explain anything further at all though. Kenji, meanwhile, at the table is like, could you guys just stop being a couple and playing like footsie under the table or whatever? I'm here too. This is gross. I don't like it. Kenji has to pop off somewhere else real fast just to go talk to some other people because he's a very sociable guy. And this is when Castle comes over and he's talking to Juliet about her training with Kenji and then is like, oh, Adam, we should try you and Juliet training together. I think that would be really helpful for the both of you because I would really like to see what happens when Juliet touches you. And Adam gets so defensive right away and he's like, absolutely not. We are not doing that. It's so clear that he's trying to hide something from Juliet. There's a way their powers are interacting, and for some reason he doesn't want her to know that. Then he just storms off because he doesn't want to keep talking to Castle about this, so she goes chasing off after him. When she catches up, he's like, everything's fine, I'm gonna fix this, when it's clearly not fine at all, and he doesn't know what's actually going on either. But eventually Castle catches up and he's like, okay, are you ready to go do more testing today? And he's like, yeah, let's go, let's figure this out. Once these two are gone to test wherever they're testing, Kenji catches up with Juliet and he's like, I am so sick of that guy. He is acting insane, he's scaring James, and he's just being so overdramatic all the time. But Juliet wants answers and she wants them now, so she starts quizzing Kenji on this stuff because she knows that he knows what's going on. And eventually she gets so frustrated that she grabs his t-shirt and shoves him against the wall, holding him there. Because he wasn't willfully agreeing to take her to see what they're doing to Adam, so she decides to force him to do that instead. Kenji's like, oh my gosh, just put me down, okay, I'll take you there, fine. How much do you weigh? And she's like, what? Why are you asking me how much I weigh? And he's like, well, because I look like this, like built with muscle over here, like just pure muscle, and then you look like, well, tiny little 5'0" girl, okay? So I don't know how you were holding me against a wall. He's crashing out right now a little bit. And she's like, wait, I was actually holding you there? I thought you were just kind of being like funny and pretending I was holding you there. And he's like, no, you fully had me there on your own strength, by using your own strength. That's the right sentence. He's asking her, hey, have you ever done anything like that before? And she's like, no, wait, yes. I punched through a concrete wall and a metal door. And she's like, cool, yeah, we're gonna have to come back to that and work on that in training, that's for sure. But let's go to the lab, I guess, so you can see Adam. Once they get down there, it's a bunch of different glass rooms. I don't know why they're glass, but they're testing a bunch of different people for a bunch of different disabilities. Everyone has type 1 diabetes here. So it's the opposite of disabilities. They're testing them for the opposite. They're testing them for abilities. Anyways, to get down here though, they did have to go through this like top secret door where there was a secret keypad. There was a secret button to get the keypad to come out so the secret door would come out. So like this is top secret stuff, and she was just led down here by Kenji, who decided that she was trustworthy enough, I guess, after knowing her for like 4 weeks and barely ever actually talking to her besides being a funny flirt. But they get down there, she's seeing all the rooms, and then they start hearing somebody groaning in pain and agony, and guess who it is? It's Adam, and our girl starts to flip out. And she starts thinking in her mind so reasonably that she's going to kill everybody in this building, especially Castle. Kenji notices that she's very upset and realizes what's going on in her mind and starts holding her back, and he's like, whoa, 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 let me explain. And homegirl is just screaming, let me go, I'm going to murder him. Bro, that's the leader of this area. Why are we shouting that in the middle of all of this right now? Castle comes over. He's obviously noticed what's going on because she's yelling, and he's like, hey, calm down. We're literally just doing the testing that Adam asked us to do on him. We are doing nothing against his will right now. He wants to figure out how his ability works, and that's what we're doing. But she's yelling at him that Adam is not their experiment and they have no right to do this to him, even though Adam said it was okay for them to do this. Castle's explaining this, but she starts ranting about how they're no better than the reestablishment, and they're just experimenting on all of them. They keep fighting. Castle is telling Kenji at this point to just get her out of here. But she just keeps getting angrier and angrier and angrier, and eventually she gets out of control and she just snaps and punches the ground, causing an earthquake basically, almost destroying the entire building. Luckily, the only reason everybody in Omega Point doesn't die from her punching the ground so hard is because Castle uses his power to hold it all together and put things back in place. She uses so much of her power to do this, she ends up passing out, and then she wakes up 3 days later, still in quite a bit of pain because the healers over here, they can't touch her, and that's how they heal people, is by touching them. So she's just hooked up to normal medical supplies. Like I said already, is part of the reason she was out is because she used too much power and basically like overused her ability where it kind of short-circuited and hurt her instead. And it's also because she punched the ground so hard, she kind of broke her hand a little bit. Sonia and Sarah are the ones who are kind of explaining what happened to her with the whole building almost collapsing, everything like that. But then Kenji comes in and he's like, hey, can I talk to her alone for a bit? Well, he doesn't actually come in the room. He was just like hiding in a corner. Sorry. Yeah, he was just like standing in a dark corner watching this whole interaction from afar. And Kenji is not in playful Kenji mode anymore. No, he's in serious Omega Point is my home and you almost messed everything up mode. So the first thing he does is like, hey, you and Kent, which is Adam's last name, need to figure your shit out and stop making all of us suffer because of it. And also has to make sure she isn't actually working for Warner and wasn't just sent here by him, because it looks really suspicious that she somehow convinced this man to get her into a top secret area and then almost destroyed the entirety of Omega Point within the first few weeks that she's here. She starts sobbing, saying she's so sorry, and no, she's not working for Warner, and is able to convince Kenji that she didn't do this with malicious intent at all. But Kenji isn't like, oh, poor baby. He's like, okay, I believe you on that front, but you have to snap out of it and stop pretending that you're not dangerous, because you are. Yes, she may have good intentions, but she is still very dangerous and very scary. She's probably more powerful than anybody else in this building. And Kenji is done with everybody treating her like a child and not being real with her. He's like, you have to figure out how to control your abilities so you can live with the rest of us like normal. And then circles back to the fact that her and Kent, which he is calling him right now, need to figure out their drama because they are all tired of dealing with their crap. Once it's clear that she understands that she needs to seriously work on herself, he's like, okay, great, good. We're meeting at 6 a.m. tomorrow. And it's not gonna be for regular training. No, they're doing something else special tomorrow. And she's like, but my hand. And he's like, I don't care. And this is why I love Kenji so much, because he is the common sense that this book needs. This book is all over the place a lot, especially with Juliet being the narrator of these books. Like, her mind is all over the place. It's fractured, it's broken, it's shattered, you might say. But Kenji is the one who is able to help her piece this back together and also stop treating her like she's a baby and can't actually handle the real world. She has dealt with a lot of shit growing up. She can deal with somebody trying to bring her back to reality, and he is the one who treats her like an actual human being. Well, Kent over here just babies her the entire time and is like, no, it's okay, sweetie. No, it's not okay. She is strong, she's powerful, and she's dangerous, and she needed somebody like Kenji in her life to be very real with her and be like, I'm going to help you, but you also need to help yourself and figure your shit out. I want a character like him in every single book I read, especially when the whiny main character is just whiny all the time, and they always need somebody who's just like, hey, you're not the only ones who life is hard. Figure it out, okay? We're gonna work on it together. Shut up. Now, after this, she does have this whole nice moment with Sarah and Sonia where they're kind of like, hey, if you ever need anybody to talk to, you can talk to us. But, this moment is pointless because I've read the rest of the series and these people never form an actual meaningful relationship. This moment would be so special if in future books they took the time to show that they have a friendship, but they never do. Sarah and Sonia are basically always just the side character healers, and that's all they're good for. It's like we only remember them, especially in later books, when somebody needs to be healed. It's like, okay, Sarah and Sonia, our plot device, our plot protection, our plot armor are right here for them, okay? And it's so infuriating because it's just a waste of a scene and a waste of potential for her to have some solid girl friendships, which is something she really needs. And we kind of get that later on in the series, which we'll possibly be able to talk about if y'all want another video. But like, she could have had it with them, and it hurts that they never explore that because I think it would have been really good for this series for her to have them in her life as well, because I feel like they could have been a gentler version of Kenji. But now let's get back to the exciting stuff. Now, they take her back to her room, and they've already been warned that Castle and Adam will be waiting for them there, because they're gonna talk about what's going on with Adam. So she knocks on her own door, they let her in, Sarah and Sonia go back to the medical wing, and then Castle starts explaining what they've been experimenting with Adam, because Adam has basically told Castle that he wants him to explain everything because he's not in the right mindset to do so. So Castle explains to Juliet that Adam has an ability, and that ability is to disable other abilities. And you may be thinking, wow, this is a great thing, so this is why they can be together, it makes so much sense, but it's really not, because his ability to disable other abilities is something he has to work on, and the only reason he's been safe with Juliet, especially when they were on the military compound, is because he was always stressed out, so his body was constantly trying to protect him, and so he was always disabling any ability he was around. Meaning, even when they were in the privacy of her room, he was still on high alert, so he was still constantly protecting himself. But now that they're here and he's able to relax a little bit, he isn't always protecting himself now, so the moments of pain we saw earlier in the book when they were making out that he just brushed off and was like, oh, it's nothing, were actually him feeling her power for just a split second. And him being around Juliet as of now drains his energy, basically. It's been noted by Juliet in the past that he is always very warm, and she's really enjoyed that and just thought he was warm-natured. But this is because his body is constantly fighting her, so it's kind of like it's fighting a virus, but the virus is her. She is draining Adam by them being around each other. And she's horrified because Adam was the one person that was safe for her to touch, and all of a sudden that has been ripped away from her. Because she feels like they won't be able to truly connect when they're supposed to be connected the most, because he will constantly have to be on guard and she will constantly be worried about accidentally killing him. She tries to run out of this room, but Adam is like, wait, because now he wants to talk to her. He's explaining that he's working on controlling this ability, and soon they should be able to have their normal relationship, but they probably just need a little distance for a little bit, but he's going to make this work. He's going to figure out how they can be in a relationship and still be able to touch each other freely and not have to worry about that. He's going to get control. But she doesn't want to risk it. She doesn't want to wait for him to possibly figure it out. But what happens if he messes up one day? She cannot live with the guilt of killing Adam. She loves him too much to do that to him. Mind you, Castle has left the room at this point, so Juliet is now telling Adam that they need to break up because this is not going to work. She will not risk hurting him, but he doesn't care about that because he wants to be with her. Now they keep fighting back and forth, and eventually during this whole we need to break up, no we don't thing, they start making out. Because we left 2 teenagers alone in the room. Come on, Castle. And they start getting real close, start doing a lot more than making out, blah, blah, blah. And eventually this leads to Adam not being able to control his ability and getting seriously hurt by her, collapsing, passing out on the ground. And she starts screaming because she thinks she just killed Adam. He's now rushed off to the medical wing and she knows she will never touch him again because she will never risk hurting him like that ever again. When Castle finds out this news, he is so disappointed. He left them alone for maybe 5 minutes. He figured they were gonna break up or at least take a chill pill for a bit on the whole touching situation, but no, they start doing all that stuff and now she's almost killed somebody because he's kind of blaming her for not being able to control herself, and that's part of it, but both of them weren't able to, and Adam did play a role in that. He should have known that it wasn't safe for him. He risked too much. She was trying to push him away, but again, she doesn't really have these social skills, and this is her first ever relationship, so I don't feel like she has, I don't know if skill's the right word, but she doesn't have the skill to be like, oh no, I don't want to do that because she's been craving human connection for so long. Anyways, Castle's not even looking at Juliet. He is so pissed. And somehow, all of this leads Juliet to thinking about Warner, and she's like, Warner is the only one who can understand me. And like, girl, you killed people by accident. This man basically kills people for fun all the time. But Kenji is not giving her time to just dwell in this, so the next morning they still meet up at 6 a.m. and they go to the secret room where people who are actually going to go up to the surface and steal supplies to bring back to the base all meet up before the missions. While they're waiting for everybody, she actually ends up talking to Winston, the guy that she met the first day she woke up here, and Brendan, the guy with electric powers. And these two are both on patrols nightly, so they're kind of filling her in that yes, people are still searching for them, but the weirdest part is that Warner is with them every single night. But Warner should have so much stuff to do back at base, he shouldn't have the time to do that, but yet he still is. They eventually have to stop talking about all of this because it is now time for the actual briefing. Basically today they're just going up to steal some food supplies so, you know, everybody at a Mega Point can eat and all that good stuff. So now everybody in this room goes up to the surface and they make it to the area where they're supposed to be pretty easily because I don't know if I've mentioned this, Kenji's power is the power of invisibility. So he goes out in front of everybody, scouts it out, makes sure nobody is going to be able to see them, and they all slowly get to the normal civilized area and start basically looking for scrap metal in the same place a bunch of other people are looking for scrap metal, so they just all blend in. There's quite a few guards watching this area, but one of these guards watching this area today, for some reason, is Warner. And Juliet can't help but watch him out of the corner of her eye, and she sees this stray dog comes up to him, and then he picks the dog up, takes it out of her sight, and she's like, what is this man gonna do to this dog? So she sneaks over to see what's gonna happen. She's pretty sure she's gonna witness Warner shoot the dog in the head or something, but no, Warner's just feeding the dog, petting it, and giggling, basically. And she's like, huh? It eventually hits her how stupid this is to be watching him right now when she's the thing he is looking for, so she turns away to try to get back to everybody else, only for her to turn a little too fast, so this catches Warner's attention. He sees her, his eyes go huge, he's like, huh? But then he just looks really confused because Kenji has snuck up behind her and turned her invisible as well because he is able to project his ability onto other people. This is a skill that some people at a Mega Point are able to use, but it's not something every ability is able to use. And Kenji was able to get there so fast because Kenji isn't an idiot and he knows Juliet is an idiot, so when she snuck off like that, he was right behind her the entire time and ready to step in if needed. Luckily he did. Already, the rest of the group has been called to go to their next location, so these two have to scurry along and get there. But as they're scurrying, they're also talking, and it turns out she may have not seen Kenji a lot in the first 3 weeks or so that they were there, but his job was actually to watch her. Not in a creepy way, but just to keep an eye on her and make sure she was adjusting well, which obviously she wasn't. And this whole situation leads to another moment of Kenji being like, you have to snap out of it. You don't take anything seriously. You never have. You're so caught up in your feelings, you don't understand how lucky you are. You have food in your mouth, clothes on your back, and a place to sleep. That is something a lot of people don't have nowadays. And now to quote Kenji directly from the book, he says, and I'd really appreciate it if you grew the hell up and stopped walking around like the world crapped on your only roll of toilet paper because it's stupid. He just continues on ranting like this for a little bit longer, and then finally he's like, okay, we gotta focus. Let's just keep moving and going. But just know, you're an ungrateful, whiny brat. Again, why I love Genji so much, he's just saying what we're all thinking. Finally, they catch up with everybody else. They're now helping them load cargo into the transportation they have to get the cargo back to base. I think it's a truck of some sort, or a tank most likely. Juliet can't tell tanks and cars apart, so I'm not trusting what she says. But anyways, she starts to finally feel like she fits in because she's socializing with people and putting herself out there and actually connecting with them instead of isolating herself and just believing they all hate her when that's really not the case. Look, I don't want to sound completely unsympathetic to her. She is acting in a pretty normal way for somebody as heavily traumatized as her would act, but it's also clear that the tough love from Kenji is working, and that is what she needed. She needed to be reminded that she has power too. And to just be told that her life isn't all crappy anymore. She has a chance to change things now. So she needs to actually put in the work so they can do that. Now we go to the next day. She's going to sit with her new group of friends at breakfast. Now this is Kenji, Winston, and Brendan. Again, I just wish they would give her some girlfriends as well, because that is so important, especially for young women, is to have women you're close to as well. It's such a key thing of growing up, and I hate that they don't have that in this book. It just kills me. It's one of my biggest pet peeves, and I don't even think I noticed it until I started talking about this book, and I realized that basically she's the only girl on the board besides these two, and these two are barely mentioned. She needs some women in her life. Please give her somebody. Anyway, she's at her new table, chit-chatting with all her new friends, stuff like that, and Adam has to come over, bed thief man over here, and he's like, hey, can we talk alone? And so they go into this dark quarter, and he's basically just begging her to try to make this work between them. But she just tells him she's not going to risk killing him to try to be in this relationship. She thinks he deserves so much more than that, and honestly, she's correct. He shouldn't have to be worried about the person he's in love with accidentally killing him all the time. This is, of what I know, both of their first relationships, and that's made pretty clear from their actions. And it's not like the problem between them is some personality trait they can fix. They don't know how much control he can actually get, and they don't know how long that's going to take. And there is a chance, even if he does get all of that control, when they're doing more intimate stuff, that is when a lot of books use that as them having the least control of their body. So what if all of that training still does nothing for him and he still dies while they're doing the nasty? That would be traumatizing for everybody. So Adam eventually ends up dramatically running away from this conversation because she's like, I love you enough to let you go. So he runs away, leaving her to sob in the corner, and then eventually Kenji finds her crying in the training room she uses all the time alone. Kenji's like, wow, that was a really impressive show y'all put on back there. That breakup was real dramatic. We don't get stuff like that down here a lot. Thanks. She was kind of thinking that Kenji might give her a break today after seeing that whole fiasco, but Kenji's not gonna do that. No, because there's like a war a-brewing between them and the rest of Sector 45 and probably the entire reestablishment at this point, so she needs to start training. So they just start by talking through what is the common denominator when she's using her super strength, and for some reason she doesn't just say that it's when she gets angry, because if they said that she would sound too much like the Hulk. They just decide it's any intense emotion, but really it's anger. She was mad she couldn't get in the door, she was mad at Warner, and then she was mad that Castle was hurting Adam. Those are the three main emotions she was feeling the 3 times that she used it. But to actually figure this all out, Kenji goes into the backstory on how he figured out what his ability was. See, there was one time when he was little that he needed to hide, and so he just turned invisible and then actually thought he was a ghost for a few days because he didn't know how to turn it off. But this was something his body did to protect him. So he eventually learned how to harness that energy of the need to protect himself and actually use it whenever he needed without having to have that emotion necessarily. And it really only worked when he fully accepted what his ability was. And Juliet has the audacity to say she's accepted her ability. And you already know, Kenji calls her out so fast for that crap. He's like, bullshit. No, you haven't. You hate yourself. And to prove his point even further, she goes, well, you wouldn't like your ability if you just accidentally killed people all the time. He's like, I mean, that's a downside, but you also have insane super strength and can intimidate anybody anytime that you want. I would be pretty happy with those abilities, if I do say so myself. After this whole argument, he's like, look, you just need to figure out a way to calm down enough to get past the mental blocks in your head that is stopping you from using your ability whenever you want. And somehow this actually works and all accumulates to her crushing a solid brick into dust in her hands. Like it's nothing. And you think Juliet would be so excited about this because she did this, she controlled this happening. But it actually just makes her realize that Adam is in more danger than she thought originally. She could have just been holding his hand and destroyed every bone in there if she can crush brick like that. Now we skip a couple days and she's still not accepting her ability. She doesn't like that she just seems to be a machine made to kill people over here. And I mean, that's understandable, obviously, but she hasn't worked at all to see if she can actually control any part of her ability yet. Because maybe she can, you know? But no, she's just mopey over here, even though they're going into war and she's probably the most powerful weapon they have, but she doesn't want to be a weapon, even though it's pretty freaking sick. Do I just like Kenji because Kenji is me minus the flirting all the time? Like, I'm not a flirt at all. Kenji obviously is. But I mean, this is how I think about most people, I feel like. I'm like, oh my gosh. Get it together after a certain point, guys. Anyway, she's gonna have to figure out how to accept that she's a weapon because, again, war is happening pretty soon, but she's talking with her table again of Kenji, Winston, and Brendan. Luckily, Adam doesn't interrupt them this time, and Winston and Brendan are talking about how the patrols last night were really odd because there was no one out there. After Kenji makes sure that they told Castle about this because that is really odd, they just spend a little time at this table being friends, joking around. They call Brendan a fetus over here because he looks like a baby because he has so much energy going through him. He looks a lot younger than he is. And honestly, a really cool little fact about his ability, since he has the ability of electricity, basically just raw power, he's able to use it to recharge himself sometimes, and I love that little detail there. I find it so cool. But eventually, her and Kenji have to go off to train her on how to shoot a gun, just in case she can't figure out her ability in time. Later that day, after all the training, she's in their room trying to get some sleep, and Sarah and Sonia come in and they're like, hey, Kenji needs you. But when she goes out there, she runs into Adam and he's like, no, we can make this work. I'm learning so much. We can make this work. I promise. I need you. But Kenji comes around the corner at this moment and he's like, this is not the time, guys. Let's go. Meet Castle like we were asked to. And it turns out that the Supreme Commander of North America has arrived to Sector 45. And the Supreme Commander is Warner's father. Yeah. So that is why Warner has been able to be out with the controls because his father is handling the other stuff at the base. Okay, but let's get into some of the reestablishment leadership details so you understand. So, Supreme Commander of North America, there's 6 Supreme Commanders across the world. There's one for Europe, Asia, Oceania, somewhere else. South America, Antarctica, maybe? Oh wait, I have them written down. Okay, we've got North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, and Oceania. There we go. Just forgetting the continents of the world besides Oceania. My word, that was embarrassing. And then those sectors are divided into 555 sectors, making a total of 3,330 sectors, but there's 3 secret capitals, so in total they have 333,000 sectors. No. 3,333 sectors. Whoever started the reestablishment really loved angel numbers because everything is like 3333, 5555, something like that. They truly believed in that stuff. Anyways, it's not completely shocking to them that the Supreme Commander is here because the people of Sector 45 have been starting to kind of step out of their normal bounds a little more because the rumors of Omega Point as a whole have been growing larger, so people are getting bolder in the actions they are taking to stand against the reestablishment and aren't listening as well and being little mindless worker ants. But it's obvious to Castle that with the Supreme Commander being here, the war is going to happen a lot quicker than they thought it was, and they already thought it was coming quicker because Juliet is here, but now it's really sped up. And the reason the 3 of them are here right now is because the Supreme Commander wants to talk specifically to Juliet. Kenji is immediately against this, but then Castle reveals that the reestablishment has 4 of their men held hostage. 2 of them are Winston and Brendan, 2 people that Juliet has grown closer with. There's also a couple others, Ian and Aaliyah, who have also been kidnapped. Sorry, Emery and Ian. So Castle's plan as of now is to send Adam, Juliet, and Kenji all out there tomorrow to talk to the Supreme Commander, because the Supreme Commander is only really expecting Juliet, so they're going to send out some extra bodies with her to try to throw him off at this game a little bit, and that will be at 12 p.m. tomorrow, so really soon. It's probably like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., somewhere in there right now. Castle is also pretty sure this is going to result in some offensive attack from the reestablishment against them, so he's going to have people out there basically ready to have a little fight tomorrow, or the first little fight of the war that's going to start happening. Kenji and Castle are arguing about sending Juliet out there. Kenji is very against this, especially knowing that this is Warner's father they're going to be dealing with, but eventually Juliet speaks up for herself and she's like, I'll do it. We've been training to fight back. This is our chance. And honestly, Castle couldn't be more proud of her in this moment because this is what they've been working towards with her. She's finally showing that she's got a little bit of confidence again. But once we get to the actual morning, everybody is eating breakfast like normal for the most part, but this is when James finally comes over to Juliet. Now, they really haven't talked at all since they've gotten here, and this has to be one of the sweetest scenes in this book. Because James had heard from the people at Omega Point that Juliet had killed a kid in the grocery store, so he actually became a little afraid of her for a little while. But she gets to explain her side of the story to him and explains why she didn't tell him, and he just offers pure forgiveness to her, and it's so precious because she has never been granted that. There is so little judgment in him. After he learns her side of the story and the fact that it was an accident, he's like, well, you didn't mean to. This little conversation basically just ends with James being like, we're gonna be best friends, and then they hug it out and they go their separate ways, and he's just a cutie patootie. Once he leaves, she starts looking around the room and she realizes everybody is looking at her differently today because they know what she's volunteered to go out and do. And they have a lot more respect for her and realize that she is finally one of their own. Now, yes, they probably should have treated her like that before now, but this is the first time she's actually ever shown that she cares about them in any way. Once she's all suited up, and the boys are too, they head out. Kenji's in an all-black outfit, she's in her normal tight spandex outfit, he's in normal, like, army clothes, and they all have so many guns on them. They go invisible, and then they go to the house they're supposed to be meeting at. But actually, they go to the wrong house first. They go to one that looks actually upkept, and when they're leaving that house, she swears she sees one of the curtains in the upper windows flutter, and she's like, huh, odd, but it's not the right address, so they then go to the right address, and it leads them to this old abandoned house. And when they have it in their sights, they're still invisible, and she's like, hey, Kenji, Adam, you guys stay hidden. Let me go in at first by myself so we can really throw him off, and if you're needed, come in and help me then, okay? And I don't know how they didn't plan for this already, but they didn't, so luckily the 17-year-old figured this out at the last second. But now that it's in place, she goes up to the door all by herself, and it is answered by a very handsome, like, 40 to 50-year-old man. And it's very obvious he is Warner's father. They got the same good looks. And he is just so pleased that she is here on time. He invites her in so nicely, and once she steps in, he instantly, like, corners her, chokes her out for a second, gets all the guns off of her, and then lets her go, and she's just having to catch her breath because he was, like, actually choking her. And then he's like, okay, take a seat, acting like nothing just happened there. Once she catches her breath, they finally get to talking, and he's explaining that he's known about Omega Point for a while, but they weren't really a problem, so he kind of just left them to do what they wanted to do because they were going to cause a bigger problem by actually trying to deal with them early on. But now, all of a sudden, people in this sector are starting to act up, and he can't have that. Then he changes the topic on how he really just invited her here to kill her. But then his son started begging him not to. And his son has never asked him for anything before. So he was very curious to actually talk to her and see why his son was so infatuated with her. But unfortunately for her, she was just brought here to teach Warner a lesson, and this is when Anderson brings Warner out, because he did reveal his name was Anderson at some point, or at least that's his last name. He invites Warner to sit down, and then he asks Juliet how she escaped, and she's like, which time? And Anderson's like, oh, there was multiple? And she gives him the quick rundown on both and doesn't go into the fact that they kissed and she shot him. Well, she goes into the fact that she shot him, just not the fact that they kissed before she shot him. But then Anderson over here goes, Aaron, shoot Juliet, I'm tired of cleaning up your messes. So he hands Warner a gun. Warner originally has it pointed at Juliet, but very quickly turns it on his own father, Anderson. But Anderson doesn't care because Warner has threatened his life multiple times before and has never truly acted on it. So this just leads to Anderson grabbing Warner's arm that is already in a sling, I forgot to mention that, from where Juliet shot him, and then twisting it so much it causes that arm to bleed again. And then he gets slapped across the face by his own father. It's clearly a great home life. But Juliet is really pissed off now, so she goes into her super strength mode and grabs Anderson by the neck and starts choking him. And keeps doing that until he is gasping for air and drops his gun to the ground. At that point, she quickly scoops it up and then shoots him in one leg and then the other because she wants to make him suffer before she kills him right now. But right before she finishes the job, Kenji steps in to stop her and says, Now is not the time. But she's yelling at him that she has to do this, but he's like, no, seriously, it's not the time for this. We have to wait. She finally does snap out of her all-consuming rage Hulk-like sensation and is like, wait, I don't know if I actually want to kill him right now. Okay, I'll follow Kenji's orders, and they start to head out. But Adam had actually followed Kenji into the house, and when he sees Anderson on the ground, he goes, that's my dad. And Kenji goes, well, shit, sorry about that, man. We don't have time to process that right now. We gotta go. And also, Warner is knocked out, so they kidnap him as well. Because they figure they can trade him as a hostage for their hostages, because Anderson has to care about his son, kind of, right? They don't really have time to stay here, though, so they just grab Warner and they start heading out, because their people are fighting this giant battle against a bunch of other reestablishment soldiers, and they need to find a way to tell Castle that they have the hostages. Well, at least Emery and Ian, they weren't able to find Winston and Brendan over here. But they need to notify Castle that they're out safe, and they've done as much as they could today, so that Castle can tell everybody else to retreat and everybody else can get safely back into Omega Point. And you know what works pretty well as a distraction? Juliet causing an earthquake with her bare hands. Yeah, Castle notices, so now everybody is retreating. These people all hop in a little tank, dragging Warner along with them. He is still knocked out, and now his head is awkwardly in Juliet's lap, and she's like, okay, great. But now that they're all in a tank and relatively safe, they're asking Adam how the hell he didn't know his father was a supreme commander. And that's because Anderson doesn't make his face known to anybody, and Adam was told years ago that his father was dead from a letter. But apparently that was a lie. Also, these three never grew up together because Adam and James were born from a love affair Anderson had with their mother. And we dive into all the trauma that he bestowed upon Adam so kindly, like beating him up and just being a completely awful, horrible, awful human being. And then Adam very fairly goes, I have to kill him. Once they finally get back to base, they're talking with Castle, and Castle's like, hey, Juliet, I have your first official assignment at Omega Point. And I feel like her first official assignment was talking to Anderson, but sure, whatever, buddy. Anyways, Castle's like, I need you to be the one to interrogate Warner, which is just the worst idea he's ever had, but he's making this decision because he figures that since they don't have an actual cell and somebody will have to be in the same room as Warner, she will be the safest, which is true, but not for the reason he thinks. He thinks she's gonna be safe because Warner can't touch her, but he can, and for some reason Juliet doesn't reveal this to him and is just like, yeah, I didn't do that, sure, cool, I'll talk to Warner. So she goes in there for what we will graciously call her first interrogation session, I guess. And Warner is the most undone she has ever seen him. He is just in his pants and his undershirt. Normally he is fully done up, looking spiffy as all get out. But he is also holding her notebook from the asylum, and she has no clue how many times he has read that. And this man starts reading a passage from basically her private diary to her. She begs him to stop, but he doesn't because he's an asshole. We all know that already. And when she asks for it back, he's like, no, I'm keeping it. And it's like, brother, you're the one who's held hostage right now. Just give her the diary. I feel like we could force him to do that, right? But then we get a little change of subject, and he goes, I never would have kissed you if I didn't think you wanted to. Wait, no, if I didn't think you didn't want to. And Warner, I get it, this is a book. I should just let it go, maybe, but I can't because this is so stupid. She was just screaming, crying about her boyfriend like minutes before that happened. There's no way somebody who is portrayed to be so emotionally intelligent as you misread that situation that badly. And honestly, the rest of this interrogation is completely useless because we really just get information we already know. She tells him that he's being held hostage so they can get their hostages back, aka Winston and Brendan, and he's like, that's never gonna work. My father does not care if I live or die, but thanks for keeping me here. It's gonna be like a little vacay. I won't have to do anything for a few days. But you all are wasting your time. Once she leaves Warner's room, she goes and catches up with Kenji and Adam and is talking about everything she talked about Warner with, besides like all the personal stuff, because she doesn't want to reveal that she actually has very complicated feelings towards Warner and she has no clue what's going on with her mind or why Warner loves her. She don't know what's going on. But anyways, eventually James comes up and he's like, why didn't you just kill the Supreme Commander? And this is where Kenji explains that Omega Point or Castle is not ready to take over the reestablishment or even the sector of North America from the reestablishment at all. And if they took him out now, it's going to cause pure chaos, meaning that somebody even worse could step up and be in charge instead of somebody that they actually trust. So they have to bide their time for a little bit longer. And then, Adam, his normal self, gets real pissy and he's like, me, I want my abusive dad dead, which, like, fair enough, I understand. But, we gotta think about the rest of the world for a second here, buddy. And I do appreciate this part of the book because this is one of the most realistic takes on actually trying to overthrow another government, with them being like, hey, we're not ready to do that yet, so we have to wait, instead of just being like, we're gonna do it. But that's all gonna get thrown out of the gutter here pretty soon, so don't take that praise too highly, author of this book that I'm forgetting your name right now. I'm so sorry. Adam then goes running out of the room like he does every time there's a hard conversation. Juliet goes chasing after him, and they have the same conversation they've had 55 times of him being like, I want to be with you, her being like, it's too much of a risk, we can't do that, blah, blah, blah. And then Warner shows up because apparently Castle is giving him a tour of a mega point, which just seems like the stupidest thing to do to your enemy, giving him the layout of your base. Are we that dumb, Castle? Anyways, Warner is here, so he's insulting Adam. He's like, really, you're begging for affection like this? And he's like, blah, 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 Juliet, you deserve so much better, blah, blah, blah. Oh my gosh, you two are so annoying, like everybody else is thinking 24/7. Castle kind of gets control of the situation again, pushes Warner out of the way, and then looks at Adam and Juliet, and he's like, you two are wasting time right now, get it together. After this, we just cut to a little training session with Kenji and Juliet, and James is tagging along this time. And this is where we learn that James actually has a power, because when he tries to test out if he has super strength like Juliet, he picks up a brick and squeezes it really tightly and like slices his hand open on the sharp edge of the brick. And he's like, it's okay, it's gonna heal. And Kenji's like, no, that's a really deep cut. We need to get you to the girls so they can heal you. And he's like, don't worry, it'll heal in like a few minutes. And Kenji's like, wait, what? That's a massive cut. That's not gonna heal in a few minutes. There's gonna be like at least a scab or something. I don't even know if that will scab over. He's like, no, that won't happen. And this is where we learn that James also has healing abilities. So Kenji proceeds to still take him to the medical wing because he needs to start training with the girls. So now Juliet has some time to wander around a mega point by herself, and eventually she runs into Castle, and it turns out Warner told Castle that he can touch Juliet. And now Castle is wanting to offer Warner permanent residence in a mega point because he clearly has a special ability if he's able to touch Juliet. And again, just one of the dumbest things ever. But he is one of those people that is so blinded by his morals he can't see when he's making a bad decision, especially if a good decision is asking him to go against his morals, because he always promised that anybody with a power would be welcomed freely at a mega point. So he's planning to just let him out of the locked room in a few days and let him roam freely with the rest of them if he agrees to live here. Just because he has a super special ability doesn't mean he's a good guy, Castle. As they're talking some more, and he's wondering why she still felt safe enough to go sit in a room alone with Warner and why Warner didn't hurt her when they were there alone together, she's kind of blabbering, trying to cover it up, and Castle's like, oh my gosh, he's in love with you. And then he's like, yeah, I know that's pretty awkward, but I'm still gonna need you to interrogate him. So now we cut directly to her interrogating Warner once again. But when she walks in the room this time, he's actually asleep on the floor wearing nothing but his boxers currently, and he's sleeping on his stomach so she can see his back and see that it is so scarred up, which is clearly abuse put on him by his father. They're not just scars that you would naturally get from combat and his training. This is clearly done to him by somebody who wants him to be stronger or something. We don't have the exact reason his father did that because he's still asleep, and he also has a tattoo on his back that says Ignite. And I believe the title of this book is... No, that's the title of the next book. Wait, what? Anyways, one of the books is titled Ignite Me. They're over there. I think they're in the correct order, so I think we're recapping Unravel Me right now. It's really confusing with the names. I don't know any of the names. I know that the first one is Shatter Me, and then after that it's just me, and some adjective before it. That's all I know. Anyways, he's asleep, so when he wakes up, he's pretty startled to just see her in there because he is like completely undressed right now besides his boxers, and he doesn't like being seen undone, and this would just be like a vulnerable state for anybody really, but like he also knows he's a pretty boy. They proceed to just have a conversation, basically ignoring the scars on his back, and then he's like, I'd really like to be your friend. This sends her running out the door though because she doesn't want to be friends with this monster. Then the next day, she's just hanging out with her friends. Castle comes over and he's like, why aren't you interviewing Warner right now? And she's like, okay, fine, I'll go back and interrogate Warner over here. So she goes back and does that because Castle's like, dude, we do not have time for you to be dilly-dallying. They end up somehow talking about Shakespeare, because her name is Juliet. He has some Shakespeare quote tattooed on him, and he's talking about how he only recently started reading because the reestablishment is going to destroy most literature, but they have a bunch of people reading through it right now, including him, to decide what can stay and what can't. And so he's been reading a lot of Shakespeare, not Romeo and Juliet. He's been reading a lot of Shakespeare. I've been filming for way too long right now. During this conversation, she catches him playing with a jade ring on his pinky finger, and when she tries to ask about it, that gets shut down so incredibly fast. We are not talking about that ring, okay? They keep talking about some other stuff. He shows off another tattoo because he's a cool bad boy, you know? And actually apologizes to her about hurting her when she was on base because he was honestly just trying to help her. Yeah, I know. Crazy. And he admits that he didn't understand her and didn't know what she truly needed to help her, and that was his fault. But like, my guy, you kinda tortured her. But he keeps going on and starts gushing about how she's going to be absolutely incredible and so powerful, and he can't wait to see what she'll be capable of one day. And this actually really affects her because for the first time ever, somebody is talking to her about her power and they have absolutely zero fear of it. He's not afraid of it at all. He wants to help her power that can destroy people already get stronger. He wants what's best for her, kind of. I have a complicated relationship with Warner, as we all do reading this series. I know where we get to by the end of this series, but it's still really hard for me to justify anything he does in these earlier books, okay? We'll talk about it more at some point, maybe, okay? But I can't really because it's major spoilers, and if this is your first time experiencing these books, it's not as fun if you don't get those massive plot twists later. So, just know. There's some other stuff going on. There's too much to dive into going on between these two to get into right now, though. If you know, you know. But now, by her doing absolutely nothing, he gives her a decent bit of information, telling her that they need to prepare for war because his father will be ordering attack on the civilians the day after tomorrow. And that will be their only opportunity to save their men that are being held captive somewhere in the lower headquarters of Sector 45. She's admittedly shocked that he just gave this information over to him, and she's like, I didn't even tell you I was here to interrogate you. And he's like, I'm not stupid. I know why you're here. I know you don't want to just sit in a room and talk with me. But now, get out of here and go tell your people about this. They need to start planning. Of course, she runs straight to Castle and Kenji and starts telling them everything about this, and at this point we skip a day or so, because the next time we meet up with them, they are about to go out to war at dawn. But Juliet is called out of this final planning meeting that they're currently in because Warner has put a dent in his door because somebody decided to give him a chair and he threw it out the door. At first, they have no idea why he's done this. He's been acting very peaceful the entire time he's been here, but when she gets there and starts talking to him, he reveals that Castle has formally invited him to live here and has told him that he thinks he can change and be a better person, but Warner doesn't believe that. He believes he is too far gone, even with Juliet telling him that she also believes he could change and be a better person. She knows the type of person he was raised by and knows the type of abuse he went through by the hands of his own father and truly believes that with a kinder surrounding, they could see a kinder Warner. But again, he just believes in his head that he is too far gone, he is too much of a monster, and there is no changing that now, and he doesn't necessarily want to change that right now. After a little more of them talking back and forth, we do actually get some information on what his power is. Basically, he has the ability to sense other people's emotions. He knew he was good at reading people, he just didn't realize that that was an ability he had. He didn't realize he was that much better at reading people than other people. He can literally sense the emotions people are having. It's honestly incredibly useful for the line of work he's in. But then their conversation changes a little bit, and he's like, Juliet, why don't you leave with me? These people are going to die. Castle is too weak of a leader to actually lead this country out of the hands of the reestablishment. You are going to die with them if you stay here. She tells him no, she's staying here. They argue back and forth on this fact for a little bit, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, they basically just come to a standstill. He's not staying, she's not leaving. So she goes back out to everybody else and tells nobody about the fact that Warner is planning to leave. So, very early the next morning, before they go out to war, Castle decides to announce to everybody in Omega Point that Warner will now be joining them as their newest member. And this doesn't go as well as Castle would like, because everybody wants to kill Warner, and they're like, why haven't we killed him already? And Castle explains to all of them that Warner has an ability. And then people are like, okay, but how do we know that? And Castle tells everybody including Adam, who is in the room, that Warner can also touch Juliet. Adam doesn't respond too kindly to this because he's Adam, the most overdramatic man in all of existence. Juliet gives him the PG rundown about how they know this, about how he touched her ankle while they were escaping, and it's like, yeah, it's no big deal, like nothing happened between us, we definitely didn't kiss or anything, Adam, no! And you know what Bed Thief over here does? He goes running out of the room again, and Juliet goes chasing after him once again because this is just the thing they do, apparently. They love playing tag. And to make it even better this time, Warner's following them too. Goody goody, this is the trio we want alone together. The two boys get into a scuffle over this whole entire thing. Eventually Juliet steps in between the two of them trying to break it up, but it's not really getting broken up. Kenji shows up and pulls Warner off, but all of a sudden he's on the ground and he's been hurt by Juliet's power. And Kenji looks dead in front of everybody. Juliet is convinced that somehow Kenji touched her. She doesn't know how, but then she realized she wasn't wearing her gloves, and is instantly blaming herself for his death because she believes that this man is dead. She goes running into the dining hall to get Castle, and everybody comes out seeing that she has hurt their beloved Kenji, and everybody is giving her dirty looks again. But people are already working to get Kenji taken directly to the medical wing, and I misspoke earlier. They are not fighting the people today at dawn. This timeline is really confusing over these last little bits. Okay, this is the morning before they go to fight at dawn. I don't know why this timeline always gets me like this. I tried to write it down correctly in the recap and I didn't, and then I tried to fix it and apparently I didn't. But they're not fighting at dawn. This is the day before they fight at dawn, okay? Cool, got it, great. Sorry I'm confusing everybody here. They're not gonna go fight in like 2.20 seconds. Anyways, Kenji is now in the medical wing and Juliet goes to run and cry in a dark corner by herself. Except Warner shows up. And he actually pulls Juliet into his lap, comforting her and explaining that it wasn't her fault, and tells her that Kenji isn't dead, he's just injured, and will most likely be okay. And explains to her that he somehow channeled her ability so that when Kenji touched him, Kenji got hurt, but Kenji did not touch her at all. And assures her that he didn't do this on purpose. He just got so overwhelmed with the amount of her power that was basically charging at him from them being that close for that long, and didn't even really mean to let it in and didn't know it would affect Kenji, but let it flow through his own body, I guess. And then somehow when Kenji touched him, he had her power. And this is the best way to explain this. Warner can steal other people's powers. They don't know that exactly for sure yet, but now we know that he can steal other people's powers. So basically, he just stole Juliet powers, but she still had her powers that she could use. He just borrowed them as well and was using them at the same time. But because Kenji touched Warner, who was borrowing Juliet's powers, that is why Kenji got injured. It was none of Juliet's doing, but she is still blaming herself because it was still her power. While she's still trying to process this, Warner tries to distract her and he's like, can I hold your hand? I want to feel the power again. Because it doesn't hurt him at all. It doesn't drain his energy. It actually gives him energy. It basically revives him. It makes him feel even stronger. So, she has now found the one person that her touch doesn't hurt at all under any situation. Her touch actually makes Warner feel better, and she cannot believe how cruel the world is to make Warner the one person that she can freely touch. And not only freely touch, but again, he feels better when she touches her, when the person she loves so much can touch her, but still has the risk of dying. After she eventually kind of processes everything, she's like, we gotta go tell Castle. This will be good information for him to have when you join us in the fight tomorrow. And he's like, I'm not fighting with you tomorrow, I'm still leaving. Castle is just way too optimistic and is truly convinced I'm gonna stay here when he shouldn't be. Now, Warner has made it clear he has no faith in Castle at all, but for some reason, even though Juliet also has this very optimistic side to her, he has faith that she will be the one to eventually actually stand up against the reestablishment and be able to do something against it, which I mean is obviously foreshadowing, but it's just to show that he already has faith in her as it is now, even though she's not reached her full power yet. Anyways, he leans in close and he's like, I gotta go now. And is starting to whisper something in her ear when they hear footsteps coming towards them, and they are Adam's footsteps. So she runs out of the hall so he doesn't see that she's sitting with Warner. She meets up with Adam. And Adam is here to bring the good news to her once again that Kenji is not dead and that he's going to be okay. And honestly, I think I would have stopped reading this book right then if Kenji actually died, okay? I don't think I can make it through the series without him. He is the only, like I said, the only thing keeping me sane. I know I've said it multiple times, okay? I know, but I just need you to know. Really the only solidly good character throughout the whole series. The rest of them have their moments sometimes, but they're so annoying. Anyways, while she has a second with Adam, she's like, hey, Adam, are you ever gonna tell Warner that you guys are half siblings? And he's like, no, that guy is not my sibling. I do not care if we're blood related at all. I hate his guts. He doesn't deserve to know. After this, Adam walks off. Juliet goes back into the tunnel, expecting to find Warner there waiting for her, but at this time, Warner is already gone. A little later in that day, they have another planning session because now they don't have Kenji's invisibility ability that they'll be able to use during the battle, so they need to iron out some things. And during this planning session, we get a little backstory on why Castle and Kenji are so close, which is something I haven't been really able to talk about in the recap so far, but they have a very father-son-like relationship because Castle found Kenji when he was very young, and Kenji was so shocked to see him at first, but finally, just put out his hand to shake it and was like, I'm Kenji. I'm 9 years old, blah, blah, blah. And he was just in a little shopping cart on the side of the street and nobody was there for him. And then Castle took him in and this was basically the start of the mega point and they're the cutest little cutie patooties and I love their relationship. It's so, so sweet. After this meeting, Adam walks Juliet back to her room. He's holding a sleeping James at this point. They have a little bit of a conversation with a little bit of tension, but nothing out of the ordinary. And then Adam leaves because again, he has James right now. But as she's climbing into bed, she hears a knock on her door and she figures this is Adam coming back to try to make out or something. But actually, it's Warner. And he's here, once again, to beg her to come with him. She's like, no, I'm not gonna do that. And then they just start making out instead. Fully consensual this time on both sides. And they start doing a lot more than making out. They're taking off clothes and stuff. And he's telling her how desperately in love with her he is. And then in the middle of all this, he's like, no, Juliet, don't call me Warner anymore. Call me Aaron. And for some reason, this is what snaps her out of this lust-filled haze she's in, I guess, and she starts thinking about Adam and she's like, oh my gosh, what did I almost do? What was I doing? And we get one of my favorite descriptors here because Warner realizes what is going through her head. He can sense her emotions and she goes, Warner looks like I just shot him. Well, you would know what that looks like, wouldn't you? They proceed to have this whole big fight. He's like, you're choosing Adam, really him? He's such a loser. And she's like, no, I'm not choosing him. But I also don't know what I really want at this time. And I still feel like you need to change. And honestly, I pity you. And he's like, you feel bad for me? How dare you? His pride cannot handle somebody feeling bad for him. And now it's Warner's turn to just run out a door, just like his brother Adam, because he will never let anybody pity him in his entire life. And he is done, and he will never let himself get emotionally manipulated like this again. Sure, buddy, sure. I'll see you in a little bit. When everybody wakes up the next day, they are all alerted to the news that Warner is just gone. They don't know how he got out, but he's out. As people are saying goodbye to loved ones that aren't coming on the battlefield today, and people are saying goodbye to the people who are going on the battlefield today, so forth and so on, Kenji shows up. And Kenji makes it known that he will be joining them on the battlefield, but really he's only talking to Juliet because him, Juliet, and Adam are teaming up once again, and he doesn't want to alert everybody that he's going to be out there because he doesn't want them to worry about him today. But he will not just sit back here and relax while everybody else is risking their life. Juliet does try to stop him from doing this, but that doesn't work at all. Pretty shortly after this little reunion, our three main characters for this battle are suited up because they all have to be together for plot convenience because we only have one POV we're going with so far and we really do need to keep tabs on all three of them, so that's what we're doing right now. That's why they're all together, really. But eventually they make it to the compound thanks to Kenji's invisibility. Well, the compound where all the civilians are staying. I'm losing words at this point, guys. It's getting rough. But they get to where all the civilians are and are sneaking around there trying to figure out how they can help because the reestablishment is directly attacking the civilians today. And they watch as they get 27 people all in one area with 6 soldiers who have guns all pointing at them. And it's clear that this will be a firing squad and they're going to kill them one by one. And there's no way for them to run because, again, there's 6 soldiers with guns that are pointed at all of them right now. They watch one of these people get shot for I don't know what reason besides to add stakes to the story right now, because right after this, they jump into action and they save the rest of them. After that's taken care of, they see a giant explosion in the distance and go running off in that direction. When they get there, they are greeted by so many dead people everywhere. Our group actually splits up to try to find people to help and get them out of there. And this ends up with Juliet getting caught by guards and getting beaten up and not being able to use her ability because they knocked her head really hard and then she passes out and the next thing she knows she's in a tank. And she's like, oh crap, so I'm gonna die. When she kinda gets back to consciousness, she realizes she's been taken to the pretty house that she thought they were meeting Anderson at the first time. But no, this is where she will be meeting Anderson now. But Juliet really isn't doing too great, so she can kind of just tell that it's a nice house, but her vision is going in and out, and Anderson is now in there, and he's like, it's gonna be so much fun torturing you and making you suffer for making me suffer. How dare you disable me? I hate you. And then he sends her off to this random woman to clean her up. And the next thing we know, she wakes up in a random bed in the house with a glass of water right next to her. She chugs the glass of water, then sneaks downstairs, and Anderson is down there waiting for her with a plate of food, and explains to her that he kept this little house so nice to keep his wife in it, and also to have a headquarters when he had to check on Sector 45. And then explains to Juliet that he made Warner do something absolutely diabolical to earn his spot as the leader of Sector 45 because Warner wanted to stay here to be close to his mom. Anderson just starts ranting about Warner actually caring about his mom. And is like, I don't understand why he's so sentimental, blah, 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 blah. But eventually he finally gets to the true reason he brought her here, and that is because she hurt him very bad. He is injured right now and can't walk correctly because she shot him in both legs, and he does not like looking weak or feeling weak. So now he will be getting his revenge. He does go on a little side rant. He's like, you would be so useful if I kept you alive, but honestly, I just really want to kill you. But this is when Warner burst into the room. And he's like, Juliet, what is Juliet doing here, Dad? Why is she here? And Anderson really likes to build stuff up, so he's like, I don't want to be like this anymore, so I saw what happened to my son's arm while he was at your base, and I figured you had some healers down there, so he has now kidnapped Sarah and Sonia because they were out on the battlefield today, and he will no longer have to deal with his injuries because he will force them to heal him. Juliet is starting to get really mad at this point because not only has Anderson taken more people she cares about, apparently, we never see her care about them, but she cares about them, she's also kind of blaming Warner for this plan because it seems like he came up with this plan, but he swears he didn't. Anderson's like, oh my gosh, both of you just stop arguing about this. It really doesn't matter because then he shoots Juliet in the chest and she feels the bullet enter her chest. She is just flooded with pain because she was shot and is thinking, oh my gosh, this is how I die. And slowly fades into unconsciousness. But then her eyes open again and she sees Warner, Sarah, and Sonia. And Warner is telling Sarah and Sonia to touch him so he can use their ability and heal Juliet because he can touch Juliet safely, but they're not really wanting to. Eventually they see the desperation in his facial expression, so they decide to trust him and do touch him so he is able to start healing Juliet, and she feels the power of the healing like rush through her and slowly mend her body back together, and that is also kind of painful. When she wakes up next, she's still in Anderson's house in the same bed she woke up in the first time, but as soon as she moves this time, she notices that Warner is on the bed as well, and he is sitting right next to her. She has so many questions for him, but the most important question she has for him right now is, where is your father? Apparently his dad just left right after he shot Juliet and was just gonna let Warner suffer and watch her die all by himself. But he was able to get Sarah and Sonia from where his dad was storing them for a little bit to save Juliet's life. But this all means that Anderson currently has zero clue that Juliet is alive. And he asks her, are you okay, love? How are you doing? We're still with the love nickname, okay? And this sends Juliet into her final little inner monologue of this book. Thinking about her friends that may still be out on the battlefield, thinking about how she's aged so much in such a short amount of time, and starts to truly accept herself, knowing that she is now stronger and angrier than she has ever been before, and decides that she is done being nice, because the final line of this book is, wait for it, I'm leaving my gloves behind. She's taken her gloves off. It's getting serious now. Now let's get to book number 3, which is either Ignite Me or Unravel Me. I think it's Ignite Me, though. I'm pretty sure it's Ignite Me. Okay, let me, do I need more characters? Maybe. Let me figure that out. We start the third book, Ignite Me, with Juliet waking up in Warner's room on base, and she starts flipping out, asking, what am I doing here? Because, obviously her last experience on base wasn't that great. He just explains to her that he had to hide her because currently nobody knows she's alive except for him and, well, Sarah and Sonia over here. Everything starts to come back to her now, and she's asking, what happened with the battle? And he has to tell her that the battle is over and everybody at Omega Point is dead. He pulls her into his arms trying to comfort her, but she is screaming at him to let her go because she wants to bolt out of that room and check for herself. Because she doesn't believe him. She can't believe that all the friends she made within the past month or so are already dead, including Kenji and Adam. She can't accept that. But as this reality starts to settle, Juliet, who turned a new leaf in the last book, settles on wanting revenge against Anderson and the reestablishment as a whole. Warner goes off somewhere else to give her a little bit of space to think through things, get kind of dressed and settled into this new reality that she's suddenly been thrown into. Over the past 3 months, the poor girl has gone through so much crap. But when he gets back, she only gets a couple words out, and those are, "your father." And he's like, "My father is not here. He's not on this base anymore. He's gone. Were you planning to go out there and find him and kill him yourself?" And she's like, "Yeah, I was. What about it?" And he's like, "That wouldn't have worked. So glad he's not here. And also I would have stopped you from doing that because that's an awful idea." Not only has his father left, Sarah and Sonia were taken with him. But this does spark a little hope for Juliet though, because this means at least someone else from Omega Point is alive. And this little bit of hope just blossoms, and she starts begging him again to take her back there because she has to see it for herself. She can't not at least check to see if anybody else is around there looking for other survivors. But yeah, other survivors are really unlikely because the entire compound was blown to bits. They bombed that thing and it's now just like a crater in the ground over there. So, people surviving, not looking good. Maybe if they were out on the battlefield, that's a maybe, but everybody inside Omega Point, so all the kids and the older people and people without abilities, yeah, they're all dead. There's no shot they got out of there. Remember who we left in there, James? Yeah, he's dead. Warner agrees to take her out there so she can see it for herself and accept the reality of the situation, and then explains that she has 2 choices she can make after that. Basically, she can stay here in hiding, or they can arrange for her to live somewhere undetected where she would have to live a solitary life for the rest of her life. She's like, no, actually, there's a third option. I think I'm just gonna kill your dad and deal with those consequences when they come. Okay? And Warner is so freaking happy. He goes, "Oh my gosh, I've been waiting for this moment. Finally." She's like, "No, I'm serious. I'm going to kill your dad and destroy the reestablishment." He's like, "Good, I want to too. Let me help you." What? When she's obviously confused, he reminds her that he told her that they would make an excellent team one day. And he's just been waiting for the day where she finally wakes up. Juliet's like, you wanted to use me though, to torture people, to get information for the reestablishment. I don't see how these 2 things correlate, man. See, but the reality of that situation is that's just the reason Aaron gave to his father to get Juliet under his supervision, but he was constantly being watched, so Warner never had the time to actually tell her why he got her on base. And the true reason is his mother is sick, or she also has an ability, but her ability, unlike Juliet, causes her to hurt when other people touch her. Even if she touches herself, it hurts her. She is in agonizing pain 24/7, and Warner wanted to find a way to help her. And when he heard about Juliet's abilities, he thought that maybe there could be some sort of correlation, and there would be a way to study her to be able to help his mother. And then goes on to explain that when he first brought her here, he thought she was going to be absolutely insane and trying to kill him all the time, but then she was just mad that she had to play dress up and refused to touch anybody because she was too scared of herself. And was honestly really concerned about her because she seemed so scared that it seemed like she wouldn't even try to protect herself from somebody trying to hurt her. So of course he tried even harder to make her mad. He was just trying to irritate her at first, but now he's trying to make her truly mad so she actually does something, because he wants her to be the best version of herself, at least in the strength department and power department. And this is when we get to them talking about, him torturing her with the toddler in the spike room. And this is the first time she's really remembering this, apparently, because she goes, "Wait a second, how dare you do that to me?" Like, girl has been making out, kissing this man, slowly kind of fallen for him as well, but just completely forgot he almost killed a toddler to make her mad. But here's the thing, he didn't do any of that because that whole toddler spike room situation was just a simulation, like one of those simulations in Divergent. And he didn't tell her right away because he kind of wanted her to believe it was real to get her really, really mad. And he was going to explain it to her later that night, but that is the very same night she snuck out with Adam. He's like, "Look, I'm guilty of forcing you to undergo a very cruel simulation, but I would never put a child in harm's way." After they finish that little discussion, he leaves to go get her some food because she really hasn't had anything in a few days. So she has some more time to think all by herself, and during this time, she decides, you know what? Me, the 17-year-old barely mentally stable girl, yeah, I'm gonna lead the resistance. I'll be the leader when we take over North America sector of the reestablishment. That's a great plan. Then he comes back with the food, they start chatting some more, and he starts staring at her stomach because her midriff is showing because she's got on his sweatpants, so they're really low on her hips, and also one of his t-shirts, which I guess is a crop top. I mean, pop off, Aaron. Didn't think you were the type to wear a crop top, but I just don't see how a full-fitting shirt on Aaron would ever be able to reveal her midriff on her. That doesn't seem possible. It was stated that these were his clothes. I know it's a little thing, but I'm gonna rag on it because it's a little silly. Focusing back on the story though, they start talking about why he let the one soldier touch her. Or why he made the one soldier touch her, and that's because he views the soldiers as animals, basically, because, you know, they don't have respect for women, and he wanted them to not ever be tempted to touch Juliet or try to harm her in any way. He did that for her own protection, really. She's like, okay, fair enough. But what about the guy you shot in the head the first day I was here, or like the second day I was here? Of what I heard, you shot him because he just stole some extra food for his family, and Aaron's like, no. No, I keep tabs on all my soldiers, and he was beating his wife and children. That's why I killed him. He was not an innocent man, like you think. This stuns her and she apologizes because she truly didn't know that that was the reasoning there, and had been blaming Warner for killing an innocent man when he actually just killed a monster. He stops her though and he's like, look, you just don't understand the choices I have to make day in and day out. And that's basically the end of that conversation. She's going to be sleeping in his room on the really nice bed, and he's going to be sleeping in his office, which is attached to his room. Once again, she's left with her own thoughts and she's like, okay, maybe this Warner guy isn't that bad. Like maybe I could actually fall in love with him. Like maybe he's an alright dude. He makes hard decisions, but it seems to be the right decision most of the time. Basically just trying to softly justify to herself that, you know, kissing him might have not been that big of a deal and maybe they should do it again sometime. But now it's time for a little fun fact about Warner. See, she goes to get her clothes from Warner's closet because her armoire has been moved in there, only to find that his closet is giant. There are so many clothes in here. So Warner over here is a little fashionista. He cares so much about how he looks, and it makes her realize that the reason she had all these nice clothes on arrival wasn't to infantize her, really. It was to give her the option to dress cleanly and present herself the way she wanted to. He was trying to do something nice for her, but she was like, how dare you give me nice clothes? But now we cut to later that night, and we get a pretty typical enemies to lovers scene. Not even necessarily enemies to lovers, just like a romance scene in a lot of these fantasy trauma books, stuff like that, where the characters have a lot of trauma, you know? Anyway, she has nightmares. She wakes up screaming, and Aaron runs in there, and he starts comforting her. He's like, it's okay, it's okay. And when she calms down, he's like, okay, I'm gonna go. And she's like, no, stay. Which, like, Katniss and Peeta will do that better every time, but fine, you can eat their leftovers if you want. But they do cuddle up for a bit after she says stay, and then he's like, no, I can't do this. I care too much about you. I can't just do this and then act like we don't like each other or that we're not something. I gotta go. And she's like, what? And doesn't really know how to respond to it at all because she doesn't know how she feels about him right now. Her last boyfriend just died. And she knows she kinda likes Warner and may have some feelings for him, but she has no clue what she's actually feeling right now. This sends them into this whole fight about how Aaron pretends to be somebody way worse than he actually is. And she wants to know why he can't just open up to people and be his true nice self. Well, he's not like a nice guy, but like he's not a monster like he presents to most people. But he's arguing with her that he's really not much better than she thinks. And then they get into the topic of Adam over here. And he's asking why she even likes that loser. And I mean, fair enough, he is a loser. And she goes, because he's kind. And Warner's like, what? You just like him because he's kind? I thought there was this big reason. But you like him because he was nice to you? And then you started dating him. Great reasoning, Juliet. And this is when Warner starts going off about Adam over here. He's like, Adam is just somebody who wants you when you're weak and vulnerable. He doesn't want you to actually grow to what you're capable of. And keeps going on, and he's like, I truly think he only viewed you as a charity case, but you are so much more than that. And it just tells her, come back to life, love. I'll be here when you wake up. And then just leaves. Poor girl woke up from a nightmare, cuddled with him for a bit, had this nice like romantic moment, and then he was like, no, I can't put up with this because I like you too much. And then they started fighting and he brought up her ex-boyfriend who's dead, and then he left. Warner, this is not how you win over a girl. But now to the next morning, she wakes up and Warner is there, and Delalu, who we can also call Delulu. I hope that's not offensive to the French. I think that's where the name comes from. I don't know. But De La Lu is here, who is Warner's assistant, apparently, and Juliet's like, hey, what is he doing here? Is he good to know I'm here? Like, what's going on? And Warner's basically like, don't worry about it. I trust this guy. Cool. Also, De La Lu is part of the plan to get her out of here today because he brought the breakfast cart in here. And so they're basically just gonna store her under that and cart her out of the, I keep wanting to call it an asylum, the base, and then get her into a tank and they're gonna go to Omega Point or where Omega Point used to be. She's like, okay, yeah, speaking of which, how did you get me in here? Warner simply explains they put her in a body bag to get her in here because there was a lot of dead people around, so it was pretty easy to put her in a body bag and go unnoticed when they were bringing her into the base. But she gets so heavily offended by this. Like, girl, he saved your life. Be so for real right now. Being put in a body bag for a little bit when you're passed out is not that big of a deal. He even puts holes in the body bag, okay? She is overreacting. After they pull their little sneak out mission, they're in the tank driving there, and she's asking Warner how he knows how to get there, and he's like, well, when you guys were bringing me into the base, I wasn't actually fully knocked out, so I did have some comprehension of what was going on, and I tracked your exact movements and figured out how to get in and out of that base and where we came from and blah, blah, blah. But also it's because Omega Point is not hard to find anymore. Like we said, it's a crater in the ground, a big crater in the ground. It's very obvious. Anybody can find it. You don't have to be talented to find it anymore. But anyways, Warner is still just truly shocked that Castle didn't just kill him. He has no clue what Castle is thinking and truly believes that Castle is going to be the death of that movement. Because the thing is, Castle doesn't truly understand the reestablishment. He truly thinks that he can somehow make peace with them, but Warner knows that that will never work. The reestablishment doesn't care about peace. They just want full, utter control. They finally get there and Juliet is just staring at the crater in the ground, wondering how this is even possible that everybody she got to know in the past few months is dead, because there's obviously no way anybody made it out of this. And she's starting to grieve fully now, but then all of a sudden Aaron tackles her saying, "Get down." But then she hears a very familiar voice say, "Step away from her, you worthless sack of shit." And that would be our bestie Kenji over here. Warner goes running off now because he knows that Juliet will be safe with Kenji, but he knows he is not safe with Kenji right now. So now these two get to have a little reunion after Kenji gives up trying to hunt and kill Warner over here. They hug, they both admit they thought the other person was dead, and they're just so happy to see each other. But then he gets back on track with the whole Aaron thing, and he's like, did he just bring you here to show his handiwork off? She starts explaining to him that that's not the case, but once again he goes running off trying to find Warner. But this is when Warner, who is right behind Juliet, says don't turn around because he has taken Kenji's invisibility ability. He used to have to touch people to take their ability, but he's grown his skill very fast as soon as he learned what it was. Warner is trying to convince Juliet that they need to go now because he knows Kenji is not going to want to talk to him at all and will probably just shoot him on sight. But Juliet needs to stay here. She needs to get answers from Kenji on what happened to everybody else, because if Kenji's alive, there's hope that maybe somebody else is. So they quickly come to an agreement that he will be back here in 4 hours at this exact spot, and gives her a pager if she needs him to pick her up sooner. Once Kenji gets back in the area and he realizes that Warner is gone, he starts to have his own little mental breakdown because Omega Point was his entire life. He grew up there. This is hitting him harder than Juliet. But he's also just so relieved to find Juliet because he's been coming here day after day after day, hoping to find somebody else. But she's trying to snap Kenji out of it to get some information out of him, and Kenji is not snapping out of it, so eventually she just picks him up and throws him over her shoulder. This works, and he's back to his more normal, playful self, asking if anybody who has seen her friend, who cries a lot and spends way too much time with her feelings. She puts him down eventually. They have a little comedic back and forth as they're walking into oblivion at this point, but Kenji finally reveals they're going to Adam's place. And yes, Adam is still alive, as well as 7 others, including James. But those are the only remaining people from Omega Point. They both go into sharing their side of the story on what happened that day, and we hear from Kenji that him and Adam noticed that she was missing fairly quickly, but they didn't have the ability to go back and find her at that point. And then very shortly after that, they heard that planes were heading straight towards Omega Point, planning to bomb it. So a bunch of people tried to run over there to get people out, but they knew they were already too late because the planes were already going. You can't beat a plane on foot. Luckily on their way back though, somehow James got out and was planning to meet up with them and help them on the battlefield, and that is the only reason he's alive, because they stored him in Omega Point thinking that that would be the safest place during the battle when that is the place where the most people died. After that, the remaining survivors of Omega Point all eventually found each other, and they're all living in Adam's little 1-bedroom house right now. And then she gets to tell him all about how Anderson shot her and how Sarah and Sonia are alive right now, and how she's only alive because of Warner's help. Kenji has a hard time believing that Warner helped anybody because he just sees Warner as this very cold, calculated man that doesn't have any emotions. And honestly, that's the persona that Warner puts on, or honestly, his normal self with most other people if they're not named Juliet. Juliet's like, well, Warner was only there because Anderson wanted to punish Warner because of how he felt about me. And Kenji's like, what the heck do you mean by that? Warner hated you. He just wanted to use you to torture other people. I don't know what you mean. And she has to explain that, no, Warner is in love with her. And Kenji's like, I'm sorry? What? Kenji can't believe that the leader of Sector 45 would actually have feelings for anybody like that. He was a soldier in Warner's army. He knows how Warner treats people. Or at least treats his soldiers, and just cannot imagine this man having feelings, honestly. And at this point, Warner is starting to feel like maybe Juliet has been manipulated, like, a lot by Warner, because there is no way that Warner actually cares about her. They eventually just drop this conversation, though, because neither of them are able to convince the other of the other person's side, and they just continue walking and kind of chit-chatting here and there until they get to Adam's place. When she walks in, everybody is just gaping at her because they never expected to see her ever again. They had no clue she was alive. So the people who are there are Winston, Brendan, then you also have Ian and Aaliyah, and of course James, Adam, and Kenji, as well as Castle. When Adam sees Juliet, he just stops for a second and then goes over and embraces her, and Kenji's like, okay, you do break it up right now. As she starts to settle in, it becomes very clear the person who was affected most by these attacks was Castle, because Omega Point was his entire life, and from what she's heard from other people she's been talking with, Castle basically just sits in that one chair all day and only gets up to use the bathroom and barely eats anything unless they force him to. He is not in a good state. He's not talking to anybody. He's not trying to be their leader right now. He has completely disassociated from life. But Kenji doesn't want to focus on that because Kenji is really depressed about this whole Castle situation, so he decides to tell everybody how Juliet survived getting shot in the chest by Anderson, and how Warner is the one who saved her life and is currently taking care of her. And Adam, he starts freaking out because they know that Warner was the one to drop Juliet off at Omega Point, and now Adam feels like they're tracking Juliet and now they're just gonna bring a bunch of soldiers here to deal with the rest of them, but Juliet's like, no, he's not gonna do that. He's wanting to go against the reestablishment as well. Adam doesn't believe this, though, and just proceeds to insult Warner, calling him an animal. They keep arguing back and forth like this for a little bit in front of everybody, but eventually Adam's like, let's go in James's room and hash this out by ourselves, because apparently this doesn't concern everybody in the room. So once they're in there, he's like, why are you defending this guy that tried to kill me and also tortured you? And she's like, he's really not as bad as we think, and he truly does want to help us. He's clearly still disgusted by Warner, so she's like, okay, so you know that thing with the toddler and the spikes when you saw me crying? That was just a simulation. Adam's like, I know that was a simulation. I thought you knew that. I thought you were just upset about breaking through a concrete wall and hurting people. So she's like, okay, let me try defending Warner another way. And she's like, he's not a heartless monster. He's truly trying to help us right now. He just keeps getting angrier, though, and he's like, this guy literally tried to kill me. Did you forget about that? And yeah, she did kind of forget about that for a second, but she's just really confused right now because Warner is showing a completely different side of herself and she doesn't know what to believe anymore. She knows she should hate him, but she just can't. For some reason. Who knows why? Juliet decides this is not getting them anywhere and decides to just ask about Castle instead, and Adam basically just rehashes what I already told you about Castle's situation here. But during this little rehashing, it becomes very clear to her that Adam has no intention of ever trying to fight against the reestablishment again. They're trying to figure out their next move as in going into further hiding, basically. Is this camera straight? I forgot to check that. There you go, sorry. She starts arguing with him over this now, and she's like, this is no way to live. You can't just live your life in hiding forever. But he doesn't want to fight anymore. He just wants to live his life and be forgotten about and keep James safe at this point. She tells him, though, that she's going to fight. But she just tells him that no, she's going to figure out a way to fight and destroy the reestablishment. And Adam is just belittling her this entire conversation they're having about her trying to fight against the reestablishment and bring peace back to the world, or at least better vibes back to the world. And just is convincing her that she has no power to do that. She's not going to be capable of doing that at all because he still just views her as a scared little girl that he met previously. A little girl might have been the wrong word to use there, but the scared girl who was too scared to use her own powers to actually defend herself. At one point, he even says, I don't want to die for a stupid reason. And she's like, I don't think dying trying to save humanity is a stupid reason, Adam. But he keeps going on and on and on about how he just wants to live a peaceful life. And finally she breaks and she goes, this is not about you. She's having her Kenji moment with Adam, and I love seeing this for full circle moment right here. Because she tells him, this decision has nothing to do with you. This is about my life. I don't want to live the life you want to live. And he jumps all the way to, oh, so you'd rather be dead than try to build a life with me? No, she just doesn't want to be isolated from the rest of society and be stuck with your sorry ass for the rest of her life. And Adam's about to say some stupid response to her saying, I would rather be dead than go back to being silenced and suffocated. But he doesn't have time to say anything idiotic after that, because this is when Warner burst into the main room. And they can clearly hear this commotion on the other side of this bedroom door, so they go out there to find everybody pointing guns at Warner's head. Juliet tries to move towards Warner to protect him from everybody trying to shoot him right now, but Adam grabs her arm and holds her back and doesn't let go until she forcibly says, let go of me, even though she's been tugging away from him. Once she's let out of Adam's grip, she goes over to Warner and she's like, hey guys, don't shoot him, please. And they're like, why not? And this is when Warner uses Castle's ability to lift all the guns to the ceiling. Again, he's not pointing them at them or bringing them to himself. He's just getting them out of everybody's hands. And then looks at Juliet and he's like, can we go? I don't really feel like talking with these people. And then talking to everybody else, he's like, look, you have nothing to worry about with me. I'm just here to get Juliet. But Adam doesn't like that response. And he's like, Juliet is going nowhere with you. And this is where Warner really starts to win me over. Because in response to this, he says, do you never get exhausted being so wholly unbearable? You have as much charisma as the rotting innards of an unidentified roadkill. Warner, where did you come up with that roast in your free time? Were you writing those down secretly, trying to find the perfect moment to insult Adam like this? Because this feels like something you have to have pre-planned to say. Or maybe the author was just saving this one up because she also really hates Adam, and that is made very clear in this book. Warner's roast of Adam actually gets Kenji to laugh, and he's like, I'm sorry guys, I know this is not a laughing matter right now, but it was kind of funny. And now people are starting to be like, wait, you actually don't want to kill us? Because he's been here for a hot minute now and nothing bad has happened. Warner, in normal Warner fashion, can't just keep escalating stuff, so he decides to escalate it a little, but also in a joking enough manner where it doesn't really escalate stuff. He's like, no, I'm just here to get Juliet, but I wouldn't mind disposing of those two, talking about Kenji and Adam. James, though, is the one who stands up at this point, and he goes, no, you can't take her. This is her home now. He's so cute. I can't. Anytime he talks, I'm just like, oh, you cutie patootie, I'm so sorry you're in this book. And this is where Warner kind of has his first interaction with James, which, unbeknownst to the both of them, they're brothers. So they have a nice little conversation. We see that Warner does have kind of a soft spot for kids, and it's a little gentler with them, but still very sarcastic, and talks to them in a more mature way than most people would, most likely. Just is very real with children all the time. He's like, look, life is not great. Sorry about it, bud. Anyways, after this, Juliet's like, no, I need to stay here for now, Warner. I need to be with my friends. You'll just have to find a way to come out and meet me here, and we can plan here. Adam over here is like, wait, you're just inviting him to come back here? What did you two agree to do together? Because apparently he hasn't caught up on all the hints of them trying to destroy the reestablishment together. So, in front of everybody, she explains very clearly that she is going to fight against the reestablishment, and Warner has agreed to help her. She assures them that they don't have to join her, but does explain that she will die trying to destroy the reestablishment because there is nothing left for her otherwise. The girl named Aaliyah is the first one to speak up after this, saying that she'll fight with her. Winston is also on board, Brendan's on board, but Ian is the one to ask, hey, how do we actually trust this Warner guy who's just been trying to kill us for like ever? You want to know how Warner responds to this? Well, he just goes, I am not trustworthy. I have no interest in helping you. I just really hate my dad and the entire reestablishment, and I make zero guarantees for your survival or safety. I am just here to get Juliet. But somehow this still wins everybody except Adam over, obviously, because this is him admitting that he truly wants to fight against the reestablishment, and that's exactly what they want to do as well, and they clearly need help to do so. Somebody does actually step back and they're like, wait, didn't you kill everybody at a mega point? And he's like, no, I had literally nothing to do with that plan. And it's clear now that people are responding well to the idea of working with Warner, and Adam is not taking this well. He is slowly getting enraged at this point. And Kenji has to be like, hey, Adam, calm down. This could be our only way out of this mess that we've made, or mess that we've been put into by the reestablishment. It could also be their only way to take out Anderson, which they really need to do at this time. This is the tipping point for Adam. He truly flies off the handles now, and he's like, Warner is a murderer and a psychopath. Why are we agreeing to work with him? And I mean, like, he's not wrong about those facts, but he's a nice murderer and psychopath that wants to help you. Juliet tries to start talking to defend Warner, but Adam just interrupts her, asking what happened to her because he doesn't even know her anymore. And then throwing it back to her comment where she said she had nothing else to live for. If the reestablishment isn't destroyed, he's like, what about me? What about me, the one guy? Don't you want to live in isolation with me who just got really mad about everything and doesn't think things through ever? Why don't you want to live with me, love me, pick me, choose me? She tries to explain that this isn't about them, but she doesn't get a chance to do that. Because he's just hopping right back on his own little tirade over here. On how he didn't want more, he just wanted her. He doesn't care about making the world better, he just wants to be able to kiss Juliet. And she has to tell him that, no, I need more. I wanted you, but I still need to be free. And this is where Adam, back to his usual antics, runs out of the building and Kenji goes after him. Juliet tries to go after him, but Kenji is like, no, you stay here. I'll deal with Adam. So she turns back around after the door closes, only to see Castle standing up out of his chair to actually talk to them for the first time since Omega Point was destroyed, telling her that it is good to have her back, because things are always much more entertaining when she's around. And everybody who's in that room, well, except Warner, runs straight over to Castle, giving him the biggest group hug because they are so relieved to have his actual presence back in the room and not just the shell of the human he's been for the last little bit. Castle, after this, excuses himself from everybody and is like, I really need a shower right now. And then Warner to Juliet is like, hey, can we go talk somewhere, like, by ourselves? And James is like, you can use my room. And once they're in there, he's like, hey, why'd you invite your friends to join us? I don't want them. And she's like, oh, guess what? I don't care because I want them. And they've also got really freaking cool abilities that could be really helpful. And, you know, Adam's there too. He can disable people, which isn't great because, you know, we're the only one with abilities right now, but like he's a good soldier, you know? And Warner's like, okay, yeah, about Adam, do you still care about him? Which like doesn't really matter at all right now, Warner. Can we just stop with this love triangle stuff? We are trying to plan a war, but whatever, teenagers. Anyways, he's like, do you still care about Adam? And she's like, yeah, of course I care about him. And he's like, do you love him? And she has to pause and think about this, and she's thinking for a while, and she's like, well, I feel like if I actually loved him, I wouldn't have to think this much. So she just tells him that she doesn't know. He's like, okay, whatever, we can deal with all that later. Can you just come back with me today? Because we have a lot of strategy and stuff to figure out. She's like, no, I need to stay here and figure stuff out with them first. This is when Kenji walks into the room and sees the two of them and he's like, get out of here. So they go back into the living room. Then she sees Adam. Adam sees her and Warner walking out of the room and he is right back to his rageful state. And instantly jumps to the worst possible conclusion, and they're like, we were literally just talking in your little brother's bedroom. We were just talking, I promise. But he just keeps ranting, accusing them of all sorts of stuff, and Juliet's like, hey, can we have this conversation in private? And Adam's like, no, I want to have this conversation in front of everybody. At this point, Juliet is just sick of Adam, because the Adam she knew was always sweet and nice to her. She does not know who this man is at this point, and tells him that this is a personal problem and something they do not need to be discussing right now in front of everybody. And he's like, oh, so you're admitting we have problems? And she's like, duh. Yes, something has been wrong for a while, Adam. But Adam is not dropping it, and he just keeps ranting about Warner and how they can't trust him and how Warner is gonna hurt all of them. But she's just still like, he's literally just here to help us, my guy. But he is convinced that Warner is not here just to help them and actually wants to kill all of them and calls her stupid in front of literally everybody in that room. Warner interrupts this whole meltdown of Adam right now, and he's like, Juliet, are you sure you want to stay here? Because I gotta get going. Adam starts yelling at Warner to get out before Juliet can even respond, though. Warner's like, okay, let's go, Juliet. He doesn't want her to stay here with this insane man right now. Then Adam goes, no, you're not taking her anywhere, while he's been just belittling her this entire time, making her feel less than human. Juliet stops him though, and she's like, I don't need your permission. You don't have to come with us. You don't have to understand what's happening. But if you love me, you wouldn't be standing in my way. And Warner's just in the background smiling because he's seeing Juliet grow a backbone against Adam, and he is so happy right now for her. Adam notices this though, and he's like, is there something you want to say? And Warner goes, Juliet doesn't need my assistance. And you might have not realized it yet, but it's obvious to everybody in this room that you have lost this fight, Kent. Adam, at this point, tries to go over and hit Warner in the face, but Warner just stops him by using Castle's power against Adam's hand. Adam gets back up, starts bolting at Warner, but Kenji grabs him and drags Adam back to James's room. After this, Warner just quickly checks in with Juliet. He's like, you sure you want to stay here? Because this seems like a whole lot, but if you do, that's totally fine. She's like, yes, I want to stay here. Then he tells her he'll be back for her tomorrow at 13 o'clock. 1300 hours or whatever you want to call it. Anyways, 13 o'clock, I don't think. Is that how you say it? I don't know military time. Anyways, he'll be back for her at 1 o'clock. Then they just share a cute little smile and everybody in the room is like, wait, what the frick is going on here? Because like, I just thought they were working together, but like, he seems to actually care about her. When Warner is gone and Kenji comes out of Adam's room, he sees Juliet and he's like, Juliet, we need to talk. Because he also saw how Warner was acting around her. And, he wants to know what is going on between the two of them. So they head outside, they go to a roof, and they start talking about this. And she's like, I don't even know how I really feel about him. I'm gonna be so honest right now. All I know is that he makes me feel capable of doing more because he actually believes in me, unlike some other people. Kenji tries to argue that Adam does really believe in her, but we know that isn't true because every action he makes goes against that. He doesn't believe in her. He wants her to be this weak, timid girl that he can protect to feel more manly. They proceed to have a little relationship yip-yap session over here. He's like, I've never actually been in love with anybody, blah, 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 her relationship, blah, 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 blah. And then they get into a more serious conversation, and she's like, I don't want to do this without you. Kenji just tells her, don't worry, you don't have to do this without me. And for some reason, she's shocked to hear that Kenji is actually in on this plan to go against the reestablishment still. Eventually, they head back into the room where Castle is up and talking to everybody again, and she forgot that Kenji never saw that Castle got up and started moving again, so we see this really sweet reunion between the two of them. Again, they have a very father-son-like relationship, and it's just a very sweet, wholesome moment in the middle of all this chaos. She spends some time there catching up with everybody, and Adam spends his time completely ignoring her until she mentions that Warner is going to come back here and pick her up to the group. Adam just tells her that if she wants to be with Warner so badly, she can get out of his house. Kenji's like, okay, whoa. Where is she supposed to go? Just calm down for a second. You know, you thought Adam was acting bad already, but it gets worse. Just wait. Adam says that he doesn't care anymore, and then he's like, okay, you want to be with him? Points at the door. Drop dead. Oh, I'm... Who are you? Have read this book 2 times now, and the first time I read this scene, I truly didn't understand where any of this was coming from, and I still feel like him telling Juliet to go drop dead is a little out of character for him. I get he's really possessive and obsessive over her, and it may be that thing where if he can't have her, he doesn't want anybody to have her, but it did seem like there was some part of him that actually truly cared about her, so this just seems like a bit of a jump from the character that we know. I feel like we could have continued to make him the villain without telling her to go drop dead. Well, not the villain, but an antagonistic character for sure. But anyways, in this context, oh, what a good sign that they've had a true loving relationship, right? Kenji stops Juliet from running out of the building and then goes to Adam and is like, you need to calm the hell down. Reminding him that him and Juliet broke up months ago. They're not together. They haven't been an exclusive thing for a long time now. Nobody knows exactly what she's done with Warner, but she hasn't cheated on Adam because they have not been together that entire time. But Adam just responds to this and says, I was happier when I thought she was dead. Kenji immediately is like, dude, you can't say that. That's not something you can just take back. And he's like, no, I mean it. I was happier when I thought she was dead. Which is just an absolutely insane thing to say about literally anybody in your life that you've ever cared about just a little bit. And Adam pulls the Adam classic and storms out of the room at this point and says to everybody in there that he wants Juliet out of there by the time he gets back. And takes a second to go to Juliet before he does storm out of that door, and he goes, you and me, we're done. We're finished. I never want to see you again. And like, my guy, you were broken up. You're the one who didn't accept that though. This is where we see Juliet kind of slip back into her old personality a little bit, or her old mental state, I think is the better way to put that. In this book, there have been 0 crossed out sections or anything like that so far, and there are 0 crossed out sections in this little bit as well. I feel like this would have been a perfect time to put a couple in there to show that this really kind of fractured her mental state a little, but the author decided not to do that for whatever reason, for her storytelling purposes. I just personally would have put something there if I was writing this book, but I am not an author or somebody who should be giving authors advice, so don't actually take that advice, please. It's probably for the worse. I don't know. Anyways, At this point, she starts clicking the clicker that she has repeatedly, and she does start counting and going kind of into that fractured mental state again of just like obsessively counting stuff and just trying to keep herself calm and from completely losing it right now. Castle is trying to comfort her, being like, hey, Adam didn't mean what he said. You have to know that he didn't actually mean that. And she's like, no, he did. Did you see him? Everybody else in this room is just trying to convince her that she needs to stay here no matter what Adam says because they need her. They want to fight. They want to work with her. But Juliet just wants to get out of here right now. This is when Warner comes bursting into the room real dramatically and is frantically looking around for Juliet, and when he sees her, he's like, are you okay? Are you okay? Is everything okay? Asking if she wants to be taken back to base, but she's not answering because she's still kind of in this state of shock and not really all there right now. And she doesn't actually know what she wants to do. She knows that she doesn't want to leave her friends, but she also can't keep dealing with the verbal abuse from Adam. And then he's like, okay, do you want me to leave? Because whatever it is you want me to do, I'll do it. I'll do anything you want me to do. Basically begging her just to give him an answer because he wants to try to make her happier in this moment. This is where Kenji goes, what the heck is happening right now? Because Warner is showing clear feelings at this point for Juliet and is actually asking her on what she wants to do and not just commanding the entire room. This is the first time they've ever seen Warner in his soft boy state, I guess. Some of the others in the room are like, honestly, this is really entertaining. It's kind of like a soap opera. I'm really enjoying this. I mean, it's been pretty boring over here. Finally, Warner turns around to see the rest of them, takes in the room, and sees that Adam isn't here. So he kind of puts two and two together, and Juliet explains to him that everybody else in this room wants to fight with them except for Adam. So Warner simply turns to Kenji and is like, okay, I will need a day to convert my private training quarters to our home base, basically. And I also need to figure out how to sneak all of y'all into the base. But I'll be back for everybody tomorrow. Kenji's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Your plan is to just lock us in your private quarters. Yeah, I'm not trusting that, buddy. So they refuse his offer at first because, again, like, they don't want to be locked in a random room by Aaron Warner. That seems like a really bad idea for them right now. And Warner's like, okay, well, I guess there's nothing I can do if they don't want to come. But Juliet starts begging him to figure out a way to get them there, to make them trust him, do whatever he needs to do to get them on base. Warner turns back to Kenji and he's like, okay, what do y'all need? And he's like, okay, I need hot food, hot water, medical supplies, new clothes, and also for all of us to remain armed at all times. Warner's like, okay, good, deal. I'll be back for you tomorrow. Juliet, do you have your things so we can go now? She does, so they hop in the little tank that he brought over here that she probably thought was a car because that's her normal. And on their little tank ride home, she's like, I don't want you to have to kill people anymore because I think you're a really good person and I don't want you to have to do that. And you're so much better than you think you are. And he doesn't even respond to this because it's obvious that he doesn't believe this. And that's that. So finally they get back to base in his room and he's like, okay, what happened with Ken? So she has to explain that Adam got really mad and then accused her of being in love with Warner. And Warner's like, and what did you say to that? She's like, well, I didn't say no. I just kind of said nothing. This causes Aaron to get up and walk out of the room and he's like, I need a minute. This girl cannot be in love with me. I need a minute. I have too many feelings right now. Now we skip to later that night. She wakes up because she hears Warner moving around in his office. When she goes in there, his shirt is off and he's trying to apply scar cream to his back from the slashes that his father bestowed to him on every single one of his birthdays. And he tells Juliet that he's trying to put this on because he figured this would make the scars look less intimidating. And she's like, well, you don't look happy doing it though. Is this something you actually want for yourself? And he's like, no, I don't care about them. This leads to this whole emotional conversation where she's explaining to him that she's not trying to change him. She's just trying to make him understand that he doesn't have to keep making the same choices that he's been forced to make his entire life. It's clear that most of the stuff he has done for the reestablishment has not been stuff that he would actually do if he had the ability to choose what he was doing. And continues to explain to him that she would really just like to be his friend. And he's like, I can't just be your friend, please stop. I'm too in love with you to just be friends. And she's like, well, that's what I need to figure out if I'm actually in love with you or if I have any feelings for you. I can't just jump into a relationship like this again. It clearly didn't work out well the last time. At this point, he is begging her to leave because this is too emotional for him and he really can't handle just talking to Juliet and them talking in kind of a cordial way. It's not even cordial. Like, this is deep emotional stuff they're getting into, but he wants so much more from her and can't just handle being in the same room just talking, I guess is the best way to put it. He also feels like he's losing a bit of his dignity with her seeing him in this state, and he cares a lot about his dignity. Then the next morning, she's taken down to his training facility that everybody else will be staying in after he goes and picks them up later today. And they now have a very cordial relationship right now. I don't even know if cordial, again, is the right word. It's very cold right now. Like, neither of them really know how to navigate this friendship type of relationship that they have. But he's like, yeah, I come down here 2 to 3 times a day. I'm jacked. And then he's like, okay, I'm gonna go get your friends. And when they all get back, they see her on a bench just playing around with a couple 5-pound dumbbells, trying to figure out what to do to work out. She reunites with her people. Warner quickly gives everybody a tour, and then he leaves without saying a word to Juliet. Kenji goes over to her after this, and he's like, okay, what happened to you two? You guys were all like coupley the other day, and now it's really cold. What's going on? But she just brushes that off, and they get to talking about Adam. Kenji is clearly sad that Adam isn't there, but it's more because James isn't there, because obviously Adam wasn't going to let James go if Adam wasn't going. And he's just worried about both of their safety. After they end that conversation, they go into a new conversation where he gets to talk a little bit about how he's exhausted from constantly having to be the life of the party and the one keeping everybody's spirits up, and really he would just love to break down right now because he is exhausted physically and mentally. He is completely drained, but he is still putting everything out there to make other people laugh and to make this really, really difficult time more joyous for others, even though it is draining him. She does her best to comfort him. They have this really nice little hug, and Kenji ruins it in normal Kenji fashion because he's like, you know, I would be dead right now if you were naked and we were hugging. And she's like, what the hell, man? And he's like, okay, but anyways, let's get back to talking about you and Warner. What's going on there? And she's like, nothing happened. He wants a relationship. I don't at this point. I just want to be friends, but he can't handle that. Because she's not ready to fully trust him, obviously. This man has been kind of insane the entire time they've known each other. And then she segues into talking about how it's unfair that he doesn't know that Adam and James are his brothers. He hasn't been told this information. Neither has James. James has no clue he's related to Warner in any way. She's truly debating telling Warner about this sibling connection herself, but Kenji convinces her not to do that at this time, and he's like, just give Adam some time. He really needs to be the one to do this, I feel like. And now we get to cut to a little later, and everybody is sitting in a nice little circle, and they're talking about their plans going forward. Obviously, they want to get Sarah and Sonia back, but they also want to kill Anderson over here. And conveniently, he's the one who has Sarah and Sonia, so 2 birds with 1 stone, basically. Warner knows at this moment that his father is in the middle of the ocean on some type of really fancy high-tech ship. So they need a way to lure him over there, and what better way to lure him back here than to have Juliet try to take over the sector. See, the soldiers for the reestablishment aren't really loyal to the reestablishment. The reestablishment doesn't treat them well. So if they offer a different leader that has already shown that she has an immense amount of power, most likely she can win over most of the soldiers and have them fighting for her. So of course, with the soldiers and civilians of Sector 44 all trying to go rise against the reestablishment, that's going to draw the attention of Anderson, who has control of this North America area, and he's gonna come back over here. And once he's back over here and they've taken over the sector and they kill him, they're just going to take over the rest of North America. Castle's like, okay, who's gonna lead us? And Juliet, at this moment, tells everybody in the circle that she's gonna be the one to lead them. Mind you, again, she is 17 right now and has no clue how to talk to people. Still, Castle's like, okay, but how are you going to be any better than the people we've defeated if you have to defeat them by killing them? And that is what they're doing to anybody that stands against them currently. She explains to him simply that she trusts herself to know what's right for the world. Right now, the world is dying, and these people are the ones causing it over here. Anderson and the rest of the Supreme Commanders. They need to be dealt with. The land needs to be reclaimed rightfully by the people who live on it, and she believes that she is the one that will be able to lead everybody to that future. And after this one inspirational speech, everybody is convinced that this 17-year-old is fit to rule the world, basically. And they're like, all right, let's go! After all that excitement, it is time for everybody to go to bed. So these two head upstairs to where she sleeps in his bed and he sleeps in the office still. And she's like, what did you think of my speech and everything like that? What do you think of this plan? Isn't it great? And he's like, I don't want to talk right now. And she's like, I just want to talk as friends. And he's like, I cannot be your friend. Because I want to be so much more than just your friend. And then they just both go to sleep. But guys, let me let you in on a little secret. How you get closer to people is by becoming friends first. I know it's this crazy thing. If you have a crush on somebody, befriend them before you tell them that you have a crush on them. It's gonna work out a whole lot better than just being like, well, I'm in love with you and I don't want to be your friend. I'm sorry, if you're in love with me, I would hope that you would at least want to be my friend. Anyways, the next day over here, in very normal friend interactions, Juliet is just watching Warner go ham on a stationary bike, and she's getting a little heated over there. But sadly, she has to be torn away from staring at Warner working out by Kenji, who is going to train her on how to project her ability or work on seeing if she's even able to do that. Eventually, they figure out she is able to do that, and she basically just projects a ball of power and it goes straight into the straight into the rock wall of that room, and everything starts to kind of come crumbling down off that wall. And so Castle and Warner both have to use Castle's ability to stop people from dying over here because she used a little too much power. And Kenji's like, cool, that was great, but next time let's not just chuck your power around randomly, okay? This little comment by Kenji gets a little laugh out of Warner, and look who's starting to fit in over here. He's making friends. Their whole group proceeds to spend the next week or so just training, and then eventually we get back to girl talk with Kenji and Juliet, and he's like, hey, I see you staring at the elevator over there. What's going on with Warner? Do you really have no feelings for Adam anymore? What is happening with you right now? Because Adam still clearly loves you. Luckily, Juliet is smart enough to be like, I don't think he does. Do you see how he treated me last time we were together? And she has this whole breakthrough moment in this conversation with Kenji being like, I think the only reason we connected is because we were so desperate for human connection. But somebody who truly loved me wouldn't just want me dead if I didn't want to be with them instead. She also points out that she's no longer the girl that Adam fell for. She's a whole heck of a lot stronger and has way more of a personality now. This leads to her going on this whole long monologue about how much she's changed and the fact that it kills her every day knowing that she was the only thing holding her back from breaking out of that asylum herself. She had the power to break out of there anytime she wanted to, but she is the reason she was stuck in there for 264 days. And wants to make it very, very clear to Kenji and everybody reading this that it's not about Adam or Warner over here. This is about her finding herself right now. She doesn't care what guy she's with. She wants to know who she is first. And she's basically figured that out at this point, honestly. But anyways, she just makes it very, very clear to Kenji that she will never, ever, ever be getting back together with Adam Kent over here. And Kenji's like, cool. Maybe you should tell that to Kent yourself because him and James are gonna be here tomorrow. See, Kenji over here has been sneaking out to go check on Adam and James, and it was getting pretty bad for them over at his little house. And you want to know how Kenji over here convinced Adam to come and live with the rest of them? Well, Kenji, smart Kenji, told Adam that Juliet is still in love with him and wanted to say she was sorry. And Juliet's like, Kenji, what the hell? I did not say that. You can't just go around lying to people like that. I don't want to have to break up with him for a third time. This is getting absolutely ridiculous, Kenji. And then just storms right out of there because she needs time to cool off. And she's like, you better fix this because I'm not. And may or may not have threatened to shave his hair if he doesn't figure out a way to fix this. And Kenji, who prides himself a lot on his appearance, is like, you wouldn't dare. Like actual fear in his eyes at this moment. But now we cut to a little later that night and Juliet and Warner are talking, and Warner is just wearing a towel, and she's laying on the bed, and she's telling him how upset she is because Adam is coming back here. And has to explain to Warner that Kenji over here told Adam that she's still in love with him, and Warner's like, well, are you? And she's like, no. And now I have to break up with him for a third time. But then she changes her tune a little, and she goes, Warner, I'm attracted to you. And he's like, no, you can't be. I will disappoint you. I am every bit the defective human you don't think I am. And then he just leaves this conversation to go and sleep in his office like the sad man he is. The Warner brothers over here, or Warner and Kent brothers, are really good about leaving any tough conversation they ever have. Does Anderson do the same shit? Because, like, they have to get it from somewhere. They both do it so much. The conversation gets slightly difficult and they're like, peace out, I'm leaving. And like, just be a man and have the conversation, man. But now, speaking of Adam, we cut to when Adam and James get there. They send James off to go get a shower, and this is when Juliet comes over to Adam, and she's like, Kenji lied to you, I don't like you, we have to break up again, I'm not in love with you, we are finished, we are done. And he's like, yeah, cool, that didn't hurt any less to hear again, but Kenji already told me, you didn't have to do that. The only reason I am here is because all of our food went bad from the explosion that Warner caused months and months and months ago because stuff just blew open and wasn't sealed properly anymore, and I had no other choice. I don't want to be here, but here I am. But he does at least man up enough to apologize for what he said, or at least most of it. But he doesn't actually mean it, apparently, because they start conversing a little more, and he starts getting really upset and really petty again, and she's like, no, I am not having this conversation if this is how it's gonna go again. I am not dealing with this, Adam. And he has the audacity to say, I can't believe you would treat me like this, when he has been verbally abusing her in every conversation they've had since they've been reunited. Are you kidding me? I can't believe you would treat me this way. She is just setting a boundary, my guy. Ever heard of that? But he is still in his head that she cheated on him with Warner when these two have never actually been together. When they had their whole consensual makeout sesh, these two were broken up, and they had been broken up for a hot minute at that point. They weren't together. She never cheated on him. And guess what Adam does now? Because he said his piece, he storms out of there and goes into whatever other area he can go into, which I guess is like the shower locker room area. So he storms out of there, and then Juliet storms out and she goes straight to Kenji and she's like, I am not dealing with this crap. This is your problem. Let's just go to the next chapter though, because I'm so tired of talking about this man. Anyways, Aaliyah, who is one of the girls with this group, she has finished redesigning Juliet's suit, and she's telling everybody about it in this meeting. It's going to be made out of carbon fiber, and basically if Juliet is using her ability to protect herself, it will make Juliet bulletproof. Warner comes into the room in the middle of this meeting, and James is shocked, and he's asking what Warner is doing here because he thought they were supposed to hate Warner. And Warner's like, if you want to hate me, that's perfectly fine. You can do that. But then in true little kid fashion, after he calls Juliet love, James is like, why do you call her love? Are you in love with her? Adam's in love with her. And Warner's like, are you in love with her? He just responds to this by going, ew, no, girl, she's way too old for me. Anyways, they keep talking, and it's eventually established that Aaron over here is part of the reestablishment, and James is terrified about this fact because he knows the reestablishment is bad. But Warner breaks it down to the kid, and he's like, obviously, I'm not working for the reestablishment because I'm housing all of you here. If I was, I would be really, really bad at working for the reestablishment, so, I'm with y'all, I promise. Luckily, James's little brain is able to process this, and he's like, okay, got it. You're not the bad guy. Cut to the next chapter now, and Warner is asking Juliet to punch him in the face. And this is because Juliet has super strength, but she doesn't know how to do anything else. She doesn't know how to fight. She has no clue what the proper form is. And that is very clearly demonstrated by her trying to punch Warner repeatedly and not being able to land a single hit. Not being able to land a single hit. Now, Warner, of course, is very trained in all forms of martial combat, stuff like that, or any form of hand-to-hand combat, I think is the right thing to say there. But anyways, she's not landing anything. After a lot of flirting and a lot of punches from her and blah, 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 all that other cutie fight scene stuff, she gets the hang of it and puts up a decent little fight. And Warner decides after this moment to step in officially and help Kenji train Warner. Nope, train Juliet. Woo, I'm getting tired. Anyways, they're both going to be training Juliet in different aspects. He'll be training her with her power aspect, and he'll be training her on hand-to-hand combat and how to defend herself in up-close encounters with the reestablishment soldiers. Kenji and her get to a point where her projecting skills are getting so good that Kenji and her both want to go out to a field to truly test out her abilities, and Warner is like, okay, we can arrange that. I need to head out of the base tomorrow anyway, so we'll just sneak you out with me. The only other thing that happens in this chapter that is of any note is that Adam and Aaliyah are spending a little more time together, and Aaliyah is more that quiet type that Juliet was a lot like when we first met her, but now she's way more outspoken. But anyways, let's cut to the next day now. She's now talking to Warner, asking why he has to go off of base, and it's because it is his mother's birthday, and he's going to go to that nice house where she was shot at and almost died to go and visit his mother, even though his mother is basically completely drugged out with all the medication she's on to try to get relief from the pain she's constantly in, but she's not really fully there anymore at this point. She has too many medications always going through her system to really know what's going on, but he still wants to make the effort to go out and see her because he cares a lot about his mom. And this is where we get the backstory on his jade ring. His jade ring was actually a present from his mom. She gave it to him when he was about 5 to 6 years old on his birthday, when his mom was hiding him from his father because his father was going to start cutting his back as part of his birthday present. And she wanted to keep Warner quiet to try to save him from this gift this year, so she gave him the ring because that was the thing distracting him at the time. And it's this very sweet moment, and it's this thing he keeps close to him because it's the only gift he's ever actually been given. After this story, she's left with just this strange feeling all day, but they sneak them out, they go outside, they're training, and he goes off to go and visit his mom, and he gives them a set time that he'll be back, which would be in just a couple hours. I think it was 2 to 3 hours. But anyways, they keep training. It doesn't go as well as they hope because they have to stay invisible, but they figure it out and get a decent bit of training in. But eventually, after the 3-hour mark has well passed and they know that Warner is never late, they decide to walk over there to that house to go and check on him. Juliet tells Kenji to just stay outside, or asks him to stay outside because she wants to handle this by herself, because she knows this is very personal to Warner and doesn't want to just have Kenji intruding as well, since Warner barely knows Kenji at all. So she goes up the stairs only to find Warner in his mother's room, but his mother is not there. His mother has passed away, and he is just finding out about it now. And he is in this room on the floor in the corner just sobbing. She goes over to him and pulls him into her lap, and he just continues to cry and cry and cry and cry. Eventually, they both come out of the house, and Kenji is just waiting for both of them in the tank, and it is a long, solid tank ride back to the base. Once these two are dropped off, Kenji reveals to her that he kind of knows what was going on in there, but he doesn't know why Warner was crying. See, he used his invisibility ability and followed her in there, but once he saw the moment, he backed out of it because he realized this was way too personal and he shouldn't have intruded like that. But Juliet does give Kenji the quick explanation that his mom died and that he was very close to his mom, and just the small details she can give without really overstepping too much. Once they get back in the room, she goes straight over to Adam and she's like, "You have to tell Warner that you two are related or I'm going to do it myself. He deserves to know. He has a right to know," because she's seen how much Warner cares about family, and she feels like it could truly change the relationship these two have, or at least how he views Adam. She doesn't want him to do something stupid to Adam that he would regret and wouldn't do if he knew that Adam was a blood relative of his. But Adam just tells her that, "No, this is none of your business. I'm not gonna do it. I don't want to do it." And then grabs her by the arm and uses his ability to disable other people's abilities and goes, "Look, you're nothing now. I'm sorry?" But she's like, "Wow, you managed to control your power." And he's like, "Yeah, I did, but you couldn't wait for me to figure that out. I have perfect control of it now. We could have been something, Juliet." But she just tells him, very honestly, that it doesn't matter because eventually they would have outgrown each other anyways. They already have. And then tells him to let go of her hand, but he doesn't. This is when Kenji comes over and he's like, "Whoa, man, let her go." Adam's like, "Stay out of it." And Kenji's like, "No, everybody else in this room is sick of your crap. You're making everybody uncomfortable because you're constantly in this sad boy phase. Just let her go and get over yourself." And then goes over to Adam, and Adam's like, "Don't touch me." And Kenji's like, "Ah, really? You don't want me to touch you?" But is still trying to get him off of Juliet because he still is grabbing her wrist or hand and just holding her there, disabling her ability. And he's like, "Fine, you want to protect Juliet so bad? It seems like you two are really close." And then reactivates Juliet's ability and touches Kenji's hand to her hand, with her ability active, knowing that this would severely hurt Kenji. He doesn't hold this for too long, but still, he willingly puts Kenji's hand on her hand as he lets the power back into her body, meaning that he was willing to put Kenji through torturous amounts of pain. But luckily, somehow, nothing happens. They have no clue why that is, but now it just leaves Kenji and Juliet very, very pissed at Adam. Once Adam goes storming off, Juliet has a moment and she goes, "Oh my gosh, wait, you touched me. I had my power. I had my full power." And she's explaining to him that she truly had her power. She felt it in her. It wasn't disabled anymore. But Kenji's like, "Yeah, cool. Anyways, I'm gonna go chill out. That was kind of freaky." So she's just sitting there for a bit, thinking over everything that just happened, but eventually puts it all together and realizes she has the ability to turn off her own power. She doesn't have to constantly be protecting herself by making her skin poisonous to others. So she runs to the corner of the room that Kenji went to and wraps him in a hug, where their skin is clearly touching each other. And he is just so, so happy for her in this moment. Other people start to notice they're happy as well, and they just have this big giant group hug, and it is so sweet. After everybody breaks apart, she's talking to Kenji and she's like, "This means so much, but this also means I'm never going to just get stuck with anybody because they're my only choice as a life partner." And this is what gives her enough courage to go back up to Warner's room and confess to him that she wants to be with him, like in a relationship. Mind you, his mom just died. He still probably has tears in his eyes from that happening. I just feel like this might not be the proper time for this, Juliet, but Warner doesn't think that clearly. And Juliet proceeds to go on and says, "I love you. I love you exactly how you are." He's pushing back on this though, and he's like, "You don't know what you're saying. You don't actually believe that." And she's like, "No, I do." And this is when they start kissing. And then they start doing a lot more than kissing. Let me tell you all about this. Again, have I said this enough? This is a YA book, and they are doing so much more than kissing. And I am so tired. I'm so tired of seeing spicy scenes in YA books. Again, I know, young adult, you would think it's for adults, like 20-year-olds, but it's not. That's the thing. Ow! Ow, my gosh. Anyways, it's not. The thing is, it's for 12, why is that still hurting? It's for 12 to 18-year-olds. This one I think is technically 14 and up, but still, I feel like we could have just done a better Fade to Black than all the stuff we get into that it's just not necessary. Not necessary. We don't need it. Anyways, after they do all of that, they're cuddling on the bed and she decides this is the right time to ask about who the heck De La Lou is. And it turns out De La Lou over here is actually his grandfather. Well, on his mother's side. He doesn't really treat him as his grandfather though. They just have a mutual respect for one another and both kind of hate Anderson because he treated his daughter bad and he treated his mom bad. Anyways, very shortly after this, they go back to flirting, and I won't bore you with all of that. If you want to see what their flirting dialogue is like, go read the book for yourself. I'm just here to give you the recap in Unhinged version of it, and I hope I'm providing that at least. Anyways, they're flirting and cuddling and no clothes. When we catch up with her, her suit is ready, it's made of carbon fiber, and she looks hot as hell according to the book. And this is just in time because apparently tomorrow is when it all begins. Yeah. Anyways, then Juliet spend that night trauma bonding some more, making out some more, doing all that sort of fun stuff. And we catch back up with them when they are ready to officially start their plan. The start of this new plan is that Warner has called an assembly and Juliet will be making an appearance to speak in front of all of the soldiers of Sector 45. Then the rest of the group they're just coming to watch. Moral support. Woo-woo! And they start this assembly off with a shock right away. Warner doesn't even go up there to warm up the crowd or anything. No. Him and Juliet just step up to the microphone together as a united force. This is met with a collective gasp from all of the soldiers because they were told that Juliet was dead. And Warner starts off pointing out the obvious, that of course they were told this, and also uses this as a point to explain to them that the reestablishment is not trustworthy, and he hopes they were smart enough not to trust them on this fact, and many other lies they have told them. And then tells them that the reestablishment is not their only hope. This is where Juliet steps forward and tells all of them that she wants to destroy the reestablishment. At this point, the assembly, they were all in perfect lines at the start. They are not in those perfect lines anymore. Everybody is running amok. Amok. It is pure chaos on the ground right now, so at this point she just decides to scale the building and climb higher up. This was in the plan. Apparently there's a speech platform up higher, so she goes up there where it's closer to the big sound system and she has even more of a microphone. And once she's up there, she asks them what the reestablishment has ever done for any of them, and points out that they've done absolutely nothing. People are starving, they have horrible jobs, they're not really getting paid well. And then goes into the fact that the man leading this nation is a coward that doesn't even show his face to the regular people of this nation, and invites all of them to join her resistance where they will know exactly who is leading them. Some of the soldiers are kind of convinced, but obviously to take over this sector, they're going to need a lot of power and to take over North America and fight Anderson. So this is the time for her to demonstrate her power. And she uses her ability to project her power to basically like carve out a line between all the people in the crowd and then split it down the middle. Luckily, she doesn't split anybody in half. She can feel where people are pushing against her energy, so she's very careful to go around them and then just like slowly shove both sides of the crowd apart. And informs them that she is able to protect them and have friends that can do even more. And this is where a little unplanned bit happens because her friends all of a sudden pop up in the middle of where she split the crowd and start showing off all of their cool abilities. She then jumps down from the very top of the building onto the ground with all the other soldiers and invites them to join the fight with her and tells them that she will be fighting with them. And it is very clear that all the soldiers here are very on board with this plan. Kenji then makes everybody that needs to get out of there disappear so they can safely get out of there and get back to their little headquarters area in Warner's training room. Our group is celebrating. The only thing really of note here is that Adam comes over to Juliet and he goes, "You really have changed, haven't you?" "Yeah, she has, dumbass." But she just goes, "Yes," and he laughs in a strange way and walks away. I don't know if that was supposed to make me like him more, but it didn't. The next time we catch up with all of them, they're back in their little planning circle that they always are in for some reason, and they're going over the plan of what's going to happen when Anderson actually gets here, which they figure will happen in a couple days. And right now, Juliet is the only one who really knows anything about this man that's in the room because Warner isn't currently in the room and just tells all of them that he's really handsome. And they're like, what the heck? Why is this useful information, Juliet? And people are like, do we even know his first name? And this is when Adam speaks up and he goes, it's Paris. But this is the moment that Warner walks in the room and he goes, who are you working with, soldier? Because no one, unless they were very high up in the reestablishment, would know what his dad's name is, unless he had a long-lost brother that he knew nothing about. But he gets to the point where he has Adam pinned against the wall, and Juliet has to go over and break it up by saying, he's your brother. Anderson is his dad. You two need to talk. Warner drops Adam after she says this, but is still refusing to believe this and is having a really hard time wrapping his head around this. And is hurt that Juliet didn't tell him sooner, which is really, really ironic if you read the later books in this series, so incredibly ironic. But she just explains to him in this moment that it wasn't her place to tell him. And finally looks back at Adam and is like, tell him the truth. He needs to hear it from you. And Adam does. And goes into his whole backstory on how this happened, because obviously Warner never knew anything about Adam. The book lets some of the awkward tension fizzle out of the room. Everybody kind of splits up a little, and when we meet back up with them, they're both sitting in opposite corners of the room. Now, once again, James is not here. He's asleep or doing something else. James is not here. He does not know his brother is also Warner. He has no clue about any of this, okay? And they've decided to keep it that way for now. Juliet goes over to check on Warner once he's had some time to think about this, and he's still in the mindset that she should have told him about this, but again, really ironic if you think about the later books. But he's also just kind of upset because this is really inconvenient because he was planning on hating Adam the rest of his life. And she's just shocked to figure out that he doesn't hate Adam already. He's already accepted that he shouldn't hate Adam anymore, and Warner explains that he can't hate Adam because he knows exactly why Adam is acting like this. He went through the exact same abuse. How can he judge Adam for acting like that when he knows where it comes from? Dang it, Warner, don't make me look like the bad guy here for not liking Adam, because you can't just change it that fast, okay? I still don't like this man. After they talk a little more, eventually Warner goes over to Adam and they quietly exchange some words that we don't get to hear anything about as of now. And after that conversation is finished, Juliet and Warner go up to their room. And, well, they do some stuff because, of course, they do. Now we get to the next day, and Warner's father is already here. They figured they would have a little bit more time, but they don't. Warner has started putting groups together that are getting all the women and children into this building and anybody else who doesn't want to fight right now into this building to keep them safe. Some people are a little bit worried about this building being bombed as well, but he assures them that Anderson will not just bomb this building because he's going to want to make this battle last for a little while and really enjoy playing with his food, and is also going to want these people after the battle is done. But the most important piece of all the information that he's gathered from his father, gathering extra troops from different sectors, stuff like that, is that he knows his father is going to be staying on the ship. So that is where Juliet and Kenji will be going to hunt him down and take care of him. So let's just cut over to them doing that, because the battle has started at this point. They're just doing the last final preparations, and then everybody else is going out to the battlefield, and now these two are on the ship. So they're there, and they're trying to figure out how to get in. And they're like, there's too many soldiers, we can't sneak in, we can't get down to the lower levels where we can sneak about, all that good stuff. We can't even squeeze by these people. There's just too many people right here for us to get by unnoticed. And then she's like, oh wait, I can just use my ability to shove them all off the sides of the ship. So she does that right away. Then they scurry below deck, but unfortunately they get split up instantly. Kenji climbs down a ladder first, and then Juliet goes down, and somehow by the time she's down the ladder, Kenji has already disappeared and she doesn't know where he's gone. So she's just left to figure out her own way to get around the ship. She does still have his invisibility, so he couldn't have gone that far, but she can't find him because they're both invisible. Eventually, a group of soldiers comes running down the hall, and she has to hide in a doorway and squeeze herself in there because otherwise they would run into her because these halls are really, really skinny. And she kind of does this for a little while, trying to figure out where Anderson would be, trying to hunt him down in the ship, but she knows she's not in the right section. Eventually, after a little bit, she realizes she's not invisible anymore, and she starts hearing gunshots coming at her, so she goes off running. And then she realizes she's running in the wrong direction because they are getting into the ship engine, stuff like that, and she knows that isn't where Anderson would be staying. So at this point, she knows that she has to turn back, and there's no more running for her anymore. So she's got to test Aaliyah's theory over here, which has already been kind of tested because people have been shooting at her in this very skinny hallway, and she hasn't felt anything yet. So she turns around and decides to fight all of these guards, and she feels the bullets hit her, but they don't hurt her at all, really. They just kind of crumple up and bounce off of her like nothing. So she pretty quickly deals with all the guards from here on out. And then starts making her way through the ship, slamming through doors, trying to find where Anderson is, trying to find any signs. Eventually she gets a guard and she pins him against the wall and she's like, tell me where he is or I'm gonna kill you. And the guard's like, I literally don't know where she is. And she believes that and she's like, okay. And then just like knocks him out and keeps on going. But eventually she gets to a more civilized area of the ship and she's like, okay, I'm finally in the right spot. And for some reason, she gets to this one door and she decides not to kick this door down. And she's really glad she didn't because she just easily opens this door by turning the handle on it. And when she gets in there, she sees Sarah and Sonia. And they tell her that Kenji went into the room that's right next door to them and they're pretty sure Anderson is in there as well. And he hasn't come back yet. And Juliet's like, okay, you guys stay here. I'm gonna go get Kenji. We're gonna deal with Anderson and then we're gonna come back for you. Okay, promise? Good, gotta go. Again, they're really minor side characters that the author doesn't really seem to care about at all because they just like pop up for convenient plot purposes and then they leave. So Juliet is now going into the next room. And when she walks into this room, she is met with Kenji screaming, Juliet, no! But then this force hits her so hard that it knocks her to the ground even though she has her power going. And now that she's in the room, she just keeps getting repeatedly hit with this force over and over and over again, and she's feeling it even with all her super strength in her, and she knows that Kenji is in this room, so he must be feeling it too. She hit her head at some point when she was flung to the ground, and she's feeling kind of woozy now, but eventually she gets enough strength back up to look up and see that it is coming from this guy that's clapping his hands together. Clearly, Anderson found himself a toy, basically somebody else with an ability that would be able to stall her for a little bit, or what they think will be able to stop her. But come on, we know that's not actually gonna work. Basically, this man is causing giant sound waves every time he claps his hands together, so it's like the force of an explosion coming at her every time. But finally, she starts to really extra super channel her ability, and she starts like slowly walking towards them. Anderson is also in this room, by the way. But anyway, she starts slowly walking towards the person doing this, clapping his hands together, and when she gets over there, she snaps that guy's neck. And then finally, she can think again. I mean, she's not feeling great, obviously. She's just had to, like, overuse her power already. But Anderson is still standing there, and he has a gun pointed at her. And then he shoots her, but it doesn't do anything because she's got really sick armor and a really cool ability now. But she is totally exhausted and is using her reserves of this ability at this point and is on the ground. But she is close enough to Anderson to grab his ankles, so she uses even more of the strength that she is running out of currently to completely crush them, which is so uncomfortable to think about. Like, she pulverizes the bones with her hands, which, like, he deserves, and then gets herself up off of the ground because he is now currently on the ground crying out in pain, but she can't hear him because of all the sound waves that just went through the room. So without even hearing what his final words are, she just shoots him, once for Adam and once for Warner, right in the head. Now, what happens after this is kind of a blur for her. Yes, Anderson is dead, but she doesn't have time to celebrate this because, again, she is at the very reserves of her power and they need to get off of this boat. So she picks up Kenji because he is knocked out. Then they go and get the girls and they start making their way out of this building, and she is just like barely making it this whole time, but she is still able to haul Kenji out of here. Eventually, they make it back to the base. It's clear that the battle on the battlefield has already died down, so at least there's not all that chaos going around. Like, there's still chaos from the battle, but it's not like battle chaos. It's like after battle chaos, you know? Anyways, she drops Sarah, Sonia, and Kenji off back at the base so they can start healing Kenji and getting him back up to strength. And then she climbs back up to the sound system at the top of the Sector 45 base and says, "Attention, Sector 45. The Supreme Commander of the Reestablishment is dead. The capital has surrendered. The war is over. I am Juliet Ferrars. I will lead this nation. I challenge anyone who would stand against me." After she finishes with this, she should just go lay down and rest and let everybody else come and find her because, again, she is not doing well. But she goes onto the battlefield to find all of her friends, but she is not finding anybody out there because it's after battle chaos, like I said. So she gets to one of the old classic houses that we see all the time today, but this is not where people live normally anymore, and she climbs to the roof of one, and people are pointing and looking at her, and she knows that everybody will know she is here, so her friends will be able to come and find her easily. She has to wait for a while, but slowly all her friends start to show up, except for one. Warner. But just as we are all about to start to truly panic about Warner, he shows up in the nick of time and they have this nice, cute little reunion and they're like, we did it! They embrace and he says, you know, the whole world will be coming for you now. And she just says, I can't wait to watch them try. And this is where we end the first trilogy of the Shatter Me series. Julia Farage, the 17-year-old girl, is the new Supreme Commander of North America. And you know, now in the second trilogy of this series, they just gotta deal with the rest of the world trying to come after them. No big deal. So if you do want to hear me talk about the rest of the series, which at the time of writing this script, I had only read the first 3 books twice. I hadn't actually gotten to the rest of the series yet. And I was like, oh, this series is insane. Y'all, the second trilogy is crazier. I swear, if I don't get to make another video on this, y'all better go read it because it's absolutely insane and everybody needs to go read it. There are so many plot twists that I would never, ever think about happening in this. It's truly like a soap opera in the next trilogy. So please like this video, please subscribe, please comment, use that little hype feature if you're on the mobile app. I don't know what that does, but it does something apparently. But thank y'all for watching this video. I truly had so much fun making this one. Honestly, I think this might be the most fun I've had making one of these since like the Hunger Games. There's something about this series that just really sparked joy. Even though I rate all of them 3 stars and I know they're not that good, I just have a really, really fun time watching them. Reading them. I have such a fun time reading them, but I hope you had a good time watching this. And if you like these recaps and like other bookish content, go ahead, subscribe to this channel anyways, even if I don't make another one of these, which I really hope I get to do, and I probably will because I just have a really fun time talking about all these characters, and I'm talking really fast because I'm gonna go take a nap and drink some water because my throat really hurts right now. So that's what we're gonna do. So again, like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun YouTube stuff. Thank you all so much for watching. I had a wonderful time talking about this crazy, crazy series. And once again, thank you to bookshop.org for sponsoring this video. Their support means so much to me and this channel. I'm the only one running this channel, but their support means so much to me, and truly go check them out. They are absolutely amazing and I adore everything they're doing. Anyways, that is all for this video. I hope y'all had fun and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye y'all!